We will call to order our regular city council meeting for May 19th, 2021. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Ronnie Felder, Chairperson Shirley Lanier,
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Present.
Councilperson Troderick McCoy,
Here.
Councilperson Douglas Lawson,
Here.
Councilperson Julia Botel,
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans,
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present, City Attorney Don Nguyen. Here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We will have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Dr. Julie Botel, Commissioner Botel. Councilperson. Good Lord. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we, Madam Clerk, note that the mayor has joined the dais,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
we will look at this agenda, and please, board and staff, let me know if there are any additions or deletions or substitutions for this agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair, there are some modifications to the agenda. I'd ask that the clerk read them into the record.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if you will indulge me, under the consent agenda, item number 1 and number 2 are the same. So staff is requesting that item number 1 be deleted. On item number 9, the resolution number that's on the agenda is incorrect. When you look at the backup information for this item, the resolution number states that it's resolution number 4821. That is the correct resolution number. Resolution number 2721 was used in a previous meeting. Staff is requesting that item number 13, the renaming policy, be moved to under discussion and deliberation. This item will keep its number but be discussed after item number 23. Item number 14, staff,
Slow down, slow down.
okay,
Slow down. Item number 13 is going under number 23.
correct. Staff is requesting that it be moved to discussion and deliberation to be discussed after number 23.
Madam Chair, so clarify, discussion and deliberation, meaning you're expecting us to take action?
That is correct. We're not expecting the board to take action. We're just asking for any comments and remarks so we can finalize the document.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Item number 14, the cone of silence. Cone of silence ordinance is being moved to under discussion and deliberation, and it will be discussed after item number 13.
So same goes for number 13 as in no action, just discussion.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Staff is requesting that item number 17 be moved to the second meeting in June. That is the ordinance dealing with Chapter 2, Article 4 of the city's Code of Ordinances.
Okay, this is an item that will be deleted or
It will be postponed until
postponed?
yes.
Okay. Okay,
And then finally, item number 24, staff is requesting that the board appointments be moved to under consent agenda after item number 12.
so we'll have this as 12A or just,
It'll be just item, number 12. It would be item number 24. It will retain its number. There's no need to make it 12A.
okay.
Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes the additions and deletions and revisions that I have.
Thank you. Are there any of these deletions or substitutions for the board? Okay, very good. The next item on our agenda is the disclosures. Are there any disclosures? There are items that are on this agenda. There are numerous items on this agenda from the board. Are there any disclosures from any of these items on the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I did speak with the group for the Sun Star regarding the item regarding the port issue.
Item number,
I'm trying to, the Florida Sun Star.
I think that's the porch item. What number
Yeah.
is that?
Is it the 15?
Item 15, yes.
Yes.
Are there any other disclosures in regards to this agenda?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
also had conversations on that item.
Okay. My disclosure is that I also had a meeting with Sunstar, is it Sunstar? One Star, Sunstar, at the Port of Palm Beach. So I have my name under this disclosure as well.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I've also had meetings with the organization as well.
Okay. Are there any other disclosures for the items that are listed on this agenda? I also want to add, I want to get the board's opinion about this. I also wanted to add for disclosures, that although we asked the council for disclosures, asking the presenters, the entities, the developers for disclosures as if they have had any conversations with us. I want to have it to be a two-way street. And that will be something that will be coming back at our next meeting. I want to make sure that these disclosures are recognized on both sides of the aisle. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when we first started in 19, I specifically asked legal what exactly was the nature of disclosures. And I think we have become accustomed to saying who we met with, but statutorily, disclosures are meant for disclosures of conflicts, not disclosures of who you spoke to. So there's no legal requirement that we put it on the record or even gesture or even any of that. And I stay away from doing disclosures because quite frequently, an individual from the public who doesn't understand that you have to meet with developers and those that present, it sometimes could give the perception of something that may not even be there. So of course, I talk to people all the time. In fact, I did talk to Sunstar, but there was never anything that was legally required to me to disclose. I don't have a conflict. I don't do business with them. So, quite frankly, even when I serve over on the board with the school district of Palm Beach County, the same thing exists. Unless you have a voting conflict, that's the only time you have to disclose. So I think it's a little, if that's what the board wants to do, but I kind of want to stay away from that because it gives the impression.
And that is the reason why I brought it up at this meeting, because we are going to work with legal to have some language to explain what disclosures mean.
Right, but unless it's required, then I don't know that you.
No, we're going to have language from the attorney and according to our charter and to explain what disclosures mean. We're not going to go out willy-nilly. We're going to make sure that whatever we are going to talk about in regards to disclosures is something that's a part of our charter that
Okay.
we are held to.
Okay, well, I'll look to see that.
All right, very good. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is for you guys to adopt this agenda. Can I get a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lanier.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. We are now at the section of our agenda that is the consent agenda. All items, should you take a motion for this first? All right, go ahead. Give me a motion to approve the consent
I
agenda.
want to pull number 10.
I'm sorry?
I would like to pull item number 10 from consent.
Okay. I would also like to pull item number 9 as well. Are there any other items that the board would like to take a second look at before we approve this consent agenda? Very good.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second, with those being pulled at 9 and 10. Second.
Very good. All matters listed on this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have any public comment cards on the consent agenda. The acceptance of public comment cards on for the consent agenda is now closed. Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could we start with the items that have been pulled?
Item number 9, resolution number 48-21, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing settlement in the matter of Russell Byrd versus the City of Riviera Beach, Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, case number 2113001-845, in the total amount of $61,698.66, authorizing the city manager to make payment on behalf of the city after receiving a general release and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, can I get a
Do you need
motion,
a
please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve that item.
Second.
Very good.
Madam Chair and members of the board, this item is seeking authorization to resolve a claim against the City of Riviera Beach. The initial item came back to the board some time ago, and there was actually a miscalculation with regards to the back wages that was owed to that particular individual. So staff has made the correction and modification, is recommending approval of the item that's before you this evening.
So that's the reason why it's coming back to us, because there was a miscalculation by whom?
That is correct. That was a issue that HR actually calculated the number incorrectly, and finance provided some additional information and was able to resolve the incorrect number.
Very good. Are there any other questions about this item from the board? None being said, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
Yes.
Motion approved. Resolution number 49-21, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving an interlocal agreement between the City of Riviera Beach and the Riviera Beach Community Redevelopment Agency for the city to provide information technology maintenance and infrastructure services, directing and authorizing the city manager to take such actions as shall be necessary to carry out the intent and desire of the agency, providing funding for its services, providing funding for IT services, annual cost of $78,000, and total startup cost of $207,500, not to exceed $285,500 in the first year, and providing an effective date.
Move that we approve Resolution 4921.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, this is the interlocal agreement between the city and the CRA to provide IT services. We have discussed this item both on the city and CRA side, and this is the actual document that will memorialize the relationship between both entities. With regards to the services that will be provided, IT Director Chris Prasad is here to answer any questions that the board may have, and staff recommends approval of the interlocal agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Broussard?
Yes, this is the interlocal agreement between the Community Redevelopment Agency and the city. It's for IT to handle their day-to-day technical services plus anything additional. We have reduced the cost with the CRA moving into the City Hall environment, so that will reduce the cost by, it's in the back of material as well. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Broussard. We are at the end of our consent agenda, and we move number 13.
Madam Chair, we're now on to item number 15.
All right, very good. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance number 4166, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 31, zoning, Article 5, IG General Industrial District, Section 31-383, parent 2, by adding a new subsection, in quotations, lowercase a, increasing the maximum allowable building height in the central area of the port from 50 feet to 150 feet, and defining the central area of the port as, quote, that area bordered by Westport Road and Broadway, Avenue E and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
I move that we approve ordinance number 4166.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm asking for Development Services Director, Mr. Clarence Sermons, to make this presentation.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I beg
Good
your
evening,
pardon.
sir.
Members of the council, Mr. Manager, and Madam Attorney. I am before you today to present the presentation for a project for Florida Sunstar Logistics. This item before you today is the voting for the proposed Land Development Code text amendment for this project. But as it is associated with a site plan application, I will go over both items with you today, but the item for a vote today is only the text amendment. If it is approved, had the second hearing for the ordinance, the site plan will be on the agenda for a vote as well. And this is not the correct PowerPoint. All right.
So, Madam Chair?
All right, there we are.
Okay, I will.
There it was.
There it was.
Go ahead and ask your question, Mr. McCoy, while they get the technical things together.
Thank you. Mr. Sermons, I'm looking at the ordinance, and thank you for having the new text that's being proposed underlined, which clearly delineates what's being proposed. But
My pleasure.
if this is only specific to that location, I guess I'm trying to understand, like, 30 years from now, how would someone be able to tell by looking at the code when the only descriptive features in this ordinance says as that area bordered by Westport Road and Broadway, Avenue E, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, period, colon, 150 feet. So like, I know when we did the land development regulations for the CRA, we actually had graphics that we actually adopted and got incorporated into the code, but I'm just curious, how is boards and councils and development services departments in 20 years gonna know that this is the only location without it being in the actual code?
So there are, especially as you mentioned in the downtown codes, visual depictions of things being described in the text. That is not the norm for the rest of the body of our ordinance, but it is not an issue to insert a picture in there. I would have to do research on how that would reflect on websites such as MuniCode, which is heavily relied on for our ordinances, and if we can insert a picture in there without any issue. But generally, we use the text descriptors.
Okay. Because, and let me just ask, because I can already see that in the future, somebody's gonna try to suggest that this applies to the entire Port District, and without a descriptive, almost like a survey or a specific boundary, then, I think you have a very long future, but in 40 years, I don't know that you'll be here to remember that this was only specific to that one location. And my only concern with this item was that I just didn't want it to be abutting some of the places in the port that serves right next to or adjacent to residential homes.
So in the review of an application for anything submitted in this area, staff reviews all of those items, and we look closely into the text to make sure that what's proposed is allowed in that zone. So we would research the area and look at the text and ensure that if it's proposed over 50 feet, that it does fall within the boundary of this, of the location described in this ordinance.
Okay.
All right, very good. You want to go ahead with your presentation?
Yes, ma'am. All right, for this one, again, there are two applications involved in this proposed development here. The zoning text amendment, application ZA 21-01, and SP 21-01, which is the site plan application. Only ZA 21-01 is on the docket for a vote today. However, in order for council to make an informed decision, we will discuss their site plan as well today. We have been working with this applicant for close to a year when they first came in our doors proposing this development, and we believe that the product being presented before you today is the result of much diligence on the behalf of staff to ensure that both parties have been, the interests of both parties are served by the proposed development here. The location of the proposed text amendment is outlined by the hashed area on the image before you. It extends to the top boundary between Avenue E and the lower boundary of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The area circumscribed in red shows the site boundaries for the proposed site plan for this development. The application for approval to increase the maximum building height from 50 feet to 150 feet on approximately 17.75 acres of land at the port in the center of the IG zoning district. This request comes from a desire to facilitate and expand the opportunities for future growth and economic development of the Port of Palm Beach and allow for the construction of a 150-foot high material storage structure by Florida Sunstar Logistics. Other existing structures at the port of similar or greater height include the FPL stacks, the CMIX silos across from Broadway from this site, and some of the light poles on the property also exceed 50 feet and come in at close to 110 feet. The increased height area is only a portion of the overall IG zoning district of the port property. The application for the site plan contains a proposal to develop a 12,271 square foot, 150 tall cement material storage dome, a one-story, 2,080 square foot office building, a 2,568 square foot mechanical equipment building, and then associated parking and mechanical equipment on a 3.9 acre portion of the 17.75 acre property. Additional information about the proposed use of this applicant. The material storage dome is to store dry materials used to create concrete. The materials in concrete would include stone, sand, and cement. The tank cannot be used to store liquids. This is not a batch plant, and the closest resident in Riviera Beach is 1,400 feet away. Again, this is the boundaries of the proposed site plan for this project. And here is an image of the proposed site plan for the project. The dome structure is shown by the circle here, and the auxiliary buildings by the rectangles here. Along here is the overpass or bridge. Under the bridge is the parking area proposed to serve this site. The dome is proposed to be decorated with a mural, and the words Riviera Beach will be along the top edge of the tank twice so as to be visible to motorists traveling either way over the bridge. Two design options are provided for the City Council's consideration, and the City Council should identify the preferred one to the applicant. This is the first rendering option of the dome. It would be illuminated at nighttime, per the picture to the right here, with Riviera Beach shown on both sides of it. The next rendering is for option 2. Again, the initial conversation with this applicant involved a generic all-white dome structure, and the image before you, again, is the result of staff deliberations and us pushing to see if we can get something more aesthetically pleasing through this gateway into our city. And the second rendering has more colors. It's higher. The mural is higher on the dome, and it has a different aquatic creatures at the bottom. Excuse me. This is an elevation of what the site would look like after development. You can see the height of the proposed structure. The dome is now hidden behind the signage at the top, and this is the elevated overpass next to it at scale. So the proposed site plan resolution for this project includes our standard recommendations from the Development Services Department, but there are also several additional recommendations that are a result of the conversations between staff and the applicant. The first are typical conditions. Construction must be initiated within 18 months of the effective date of the resolution, or it will be considered null and void. 2, City Council authorizes staff to approve future amendments to the site plan administratively, so long as the site plan does not deviate greater than 5% from the originally approved site plan. 3, the development must receive final certificate of occupancy from the city for all buildings and units within 5 years of the approval of the adopting resolution, or it would be considered null and void. All future advertising must state that the development is located in the city of Riviera Beach in accordance with Code Section 31-554. 5, once approved, this resolution shall supersede any previous site plan approvals for this property. 6, the concurrently proposed ordinance number 4166 associated with this text amendment, application ZA 21-01, shall be approved and adopted prior to the approval of the site plan. Again, these are conditions for the site plan resolution. 7, the applicant shall provide a check payable to the city of Riviera Beach for not less than $45,285.15 for landscape improvements in the city prior to the issuance of a building permit. This is a result of the port property being not appropriate for the type of landscaping that the city requires for development projects. So in lieu of them planting it within this industrial area, they will provide the city the funds for the required landscaping for the project so that the city can install the landscaping at a more appropriate location. 8, the applicant shall consider partnering with the city as possible to identify opportunities to provide outreach and support to local residents, including but not limited to programs such as the Youth Empowerment Program, the Reentry Center, or the establishment of a charitable foundation. This condition is a result of the applicant's offer to partner with the community for development and the improvement of the quality of life of citizens here. They have similar initiatives in other communities in which they work, so we added this condition to reflect that, and future discussions will result in potential partnerships and contributions to these organizations. 10, the applicant shall actively advertise employment opportunities for temporary and permanent positions within the city of Riviera Beach, including participation at community job fairs or hosting specialized recruitment events. The developer shall provide a report to the Development Services Department at 6 months post-certificate of occupancy, documenting the outreach efforts to acquire local employees, the number of employees hired, the number of local businesses contracted with, subject to employment and privacy laws, and the percentage of construction costs expended with local vendors.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
if I might, just quickly before you finish that, before you move on, could you just very briefly tell the watching viewers here about how many jobs this will create?
So the applicant who is here and prepared to present can be more specific, but they anticipate 100+ jobs for construction and 100+ jobs for operations. The majority of those jobs connected to operations would be in logistics and trucks and transportation.
Thank you.
10, Florida Sunstar Logistics shall participate in efforts to enhance and beautify the bridge and southern gateway to the city by working with the city and other partners to provide a conceptual design for the beautification of the gateway and bridge to the city of Riviera Beach. Florida Sunstar Logistics shall deliver the conceptual bridge and gateway beautification design to the city prior to the issuance of a building permit. This condition is related to our comments related to this portion of the city being a primary gateway. If you're heading north on Broadway and you go over this bridge, it is one of the main entry points of the city, and we want to ensure as much as possible that the experience of visitors coming to our city is a good one. So with this dome going there, with serving as a sort of beacon as persons enter Riviera Beach with that signage and the mural on it, we want to make sure the bridge itself is up to our standards and what it could be. So what they have committed to doing is to create a design potential plan for what this bridge could look like. And so imagining a bridge that has some ornamentation such as the Blue Heron Bridge or others in the area for the flyover bridge for the port to, again, improve the entry experience for those entering into Riviera Beach from the south. And 11, the final design of the mural on the dome structure shall be to the satisfaction of the City Council and installed prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. The applicant shall provide an alternate rendering for consideration by City Council, and that was at the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board after hearing this project. So staff recommends approval of the amendment to the Code of Ordinance or application ZA 21-01 to increase the maximum building height from 50 to 150 feet on approximately 17.75 acres of land at the port in the center of the IG zoning district. The area subject to the increased height identified as that area bordered by Westport Road and Broadway, Avenue E, and Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. And that concludes the staff presentation. Again, the applicant is present and prepared to present as well.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions from the board?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Sermons, let me get back up to the condition of the $45,285. I've never seen that we've ever asked any applicant or any developer to provide the cities any money. Are you familiar with how that came about?
Yes, because of the,
No, I know why, but
I'm sorry.
I know what it's for, but why are we asking someone to give us $45,000 in lieu of any kind of landscaping that they would have been able to provide?
Because the landscaping would not it would not serve its purpose in the location of this site, and so it would serve the community better if the landscaping is and it is installed at another location in the city.
And that whose recommendation from the city was that?
This was a result of deliberations between city staff and the applicant.
I'm trying to find the origin of the thought to ask them to pay that. Would it have been you? Would it have been the manager? Who exactly from the city proposed that?
I believe the applicant stated that when reviewing the landscaping requirements of the city, that it was impractical that any significant landscaping installed in this area would survive because it's an industrial property, and furthermore, it would not be visible to the community and not serve the overall purposes of the landscaping code. So because of the applicant bringing that forth to question, and they offered, would it be possible for them to make a contribution in lieu of. This number is the result of a landscaping review of the property. They used our landscaping code and they did the calculations of how many shrubs, how many trees per linear foot of property boundary to calculate what the cost for the installation would be. And they used that cost for the landscaping requirements to create this figure of the 45,000.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because we had several projects and developments come through to the port. We've had several developments and projects come through to other industrial areas that we've never asked anyone to give us a contribution, basically a donation. And I guess I want to correct you because it's not a donation in lieu of, because there's no requirement. If there's not any landscape that they can actually put in an industrial area, specifically at the port, I don't understand how we can now profit that. But if we do, right, and that's where we are now, and I didn't see it until this just came up, who makes this decision on where the money goes? Because, you know, if we're going to sit here, and in my opinion, it seems like shakedown money. If we're going to sit here and tell a developer something we've never done before, that because you don't have landscaping, just write us a check for $45,000 and we'll figure out where else in the city we're going to do it. And I'm only concerned because we have no program in place. We've not even had a policy or even a previous example of this happening. That is not to be decided today, but the site plan is contingent on something we've never even built out a program for. So I want to figure out how we get to the end without first going to, we get to Z without first starting at A and B, and I've never seen this happen before, and I'm really curious. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the idea, but, clearly there should have been, a program. I know when Waste Management came in and we decided that Waste Management had the ability to levy fees, we decided to set aside that money when they had charged commercial customers for overfilling containers. That money was set aside in a fund that was specifically that went towards neighborhood community revitalization. So I'm just curious how we get to the end before we get to A and B, and certainly if this is approved, which I don't necessarily like to make it a condition, because then that becomes the condition today and that becomes the standard going forward. But if a person just wants to open up a business or open up a development in an industrial area, they have to now subject themselves to paying a certain amount of dollars, and there's no precedent for it. There's no ordinance. There's no previous resolutions that require it. It just seems like, we want to welcome businesses. They offered to put the mural on the tank, so I'm sure that there's a cost associated with that. And I think that was in the spirit of reasoning and going back and forth with.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy.
Am I going to be able to finish?
No, not right now. I want some other members who want to wait.
But I still have my time.
I understand that. You have a certain amount of time. I think it's 10 minutes to be able to have a conversation or discussion about an item. We have 4 other members here that might want to ask questions as well, and we will come back to you, sir. Are there any other members on this dais that would like to have a question for either the presenters or for the staff who has presented this item? With that being said, I want to...
Madam Chair?
Yes, go
Just a
ahead.
quick point of information for the developers. I want them to be aware that we have a Palm Beach State College course in logistics and transportation right now with about 20 students enrolled. They'll be graduating at the end of the summer, and they're all going to have a 15-credit college credit certificate in logistics and transportation. So if you need workers, you know where to find them. That's all. Thanks.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I did want to hear from the developers, the Sunstar.
All right, very good. Would a representative from Sunstar please come up for any answers that you may provide?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Jeremy Shear from Becker and Polikoff, representing Florida Sunstar. We do have a brief presentation, although Director Sermons did a great job, may have stolen some of our thunder. But if you have a few minutes, I'd like to run through it.
Yes, sure.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. Florida Sunstar Logistics, and you can go on to the next page.
Yeah, the clicker.
Oh, do I need a clicker? Thanks. Thanks so much. Excellent. So as Director Sermons mentioned, this would raise the maximum height in the central IG district to 150 feet. The purpose would be to allow for a dome that would contain up to 50,000 tons of cement. And yes, this is a real word, cementitious material.
That can't be a word.
That is actually a real word, yes. And the amount of storage is necessary to accommodate a 30,000-ton vessel with a buffer of material until reloading can take place. So very important, there's going to be a lot of turnover. They anticipate that this is going to meet, South Florida's construction industry anticipated growth. The facility will be state-of-the-art and meet EPA regulations with any dust or debris, and that's, I believe, 99.9% will be captured within the plant and on-site pipes. Here you can see the aerial as well as the depiction as well, which Director Sermons already ran through. Let's see here. And as was previously mentioned, there are other structures that are 150 feet or close to it. There's FP&L stacks to the southeast of the site that are 154 feet. And then there are existing silos directly to the east of the site, east of Broadway, that are at 150 feet. So this is the first rendering. As you can see here, there's dolphins swimming. There's the day and night view. We are taking requests. If anybody wants to become the face of the city, please just let us know. So yes, this is the first one. And here is the alternative with various other marine life. I believe there's still a dolphin, perhaps a shark, and looks like an octopus at the bottom. And all right, so talking about traffic, we are well below the minimum of 500 trips to do a full traffic report. We're at 170 trips a day, so not even close to that. And let's see here. There was a question earlier about how many jobs would be created. So we are anticipating over 100 temporary construction jobs, as well as 110 full-time direct and indirect jobs. And that really runs the strata. It's going to be management, operations, mechanics, desk hands, truck drivers. So, it could be college graduates, could be, high school graduates. Really, it really runs the gamut. It's going to be a great job creator for the community. And Florida Sunstar is really excited to partner with Riviera Beach and hopefully make a positive impact on the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for this gentleman for his presentation?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
if I may, to Councilperson McCoy's comments.
Well, Mr. Evans, you haven't even heard my comments, so I would like to finish.
Sir,
let the city manager speak, please.
Yeah, but
Sir.
point of order, because.
No, there is point of
I have
order. I am the
rules
chair here, and I asked
And the resolution
I
calls-
asked the city manager
Madam Chair?
to speak.
Okay,
And that
well-
is what is going to happen, sir.
Well, are we following the Robert's rules? of
We are
conduct to
following,
adopt the
we are
resolution?
following Robert's Rules of Orders. I called on the chair, I called on the city manager to speak. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, we have also, in previous actions as it relates to site plan, we have gotten cash contributions, most recently with the UPS site plan that came before the board. 35,000, I believe, or 40,000 was set aside for infrastructure improvements in the community. Also, it is very common in many municipalities that there is contributions in lieu of landscape improvements in industrial parks to help facilitate community beautifications. It's also monies that have been set aside for public art projects. As it relates to the monies would be set aside, and as part of your budget appropriation process, that's when the board would allocate where the funds would be utilized. So if there is any project or initiative that staff thinks would be within that particular impacted area, that would come back before you all for consideration. So those monies would not go into operating or anything like that. It would be something that the board would have some conversations with staff prior to moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other presentations from you guys, from Mr. Sermons, from anything else you want to add? Thank you so much. Any other questions from the board in regards to this item?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Sermons, I just wanted to publicly thank you for the work that you did on this, bringing this to the council. I got nothing but rave reviews from the organization in regards to getting this done over this last year of discussion and working with them hand in hand with the concerns of the Diaz, with the concerns of the community in regards to the job creation, in regards to the beautification of the tank. So thank you for your efforts in this. When I had the meetings with the organization, with Florida Sunstar, they said they were very pleased with the service that they received in regards to the consistency, the customer service, and the dialogue. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Evans, the $45,000 that's being allocated, I would love for that and colleagues for us to initiate and move forward with our Arts in Public Places program. This is a prime example of one of the programs that we can create to beautify and create a sustainability in our area with arts, with the culture, or with training, with education. And this would be a great tool for the program to instill that money, that capital into that program. The businesses that are coming into the city have no problem donating and contributing to different programs in our community because they're going to be utilizing the resources in our community. They're utilizing our land, our beachfront, our portfront, our railroad areas. So I wouldn't consider it a shakedown, as my colleague stated, more of a contribution to the community that they're actually investing into. And also with the jobs, I wanted to thank you very much for these jobs. I do have a question, though. The starting salary for these positions, what are some of the salaries from these 100+ positions that are being created for the residents here in the community?
I believe $15 an hour would be the starting. So that would be the floor.
Okay. So the floor would be a living wage salary at 15, even though cost of living is going up, even though the salaries are raising across the country. 15 is going to be your floor for the positions, going up to what?
Right, so that would be the floor, but as I mentioned earlier, Florida Sunstar is very eager to work with the community and grow, hopefully, have, lifelong careers where, people can grow within the organization. In addition to that, there are, higher strata jobs that do require, more of an education where they would start at a higher salary. But yeah, that's the absolute floor.
Okay. And then how do we guarantee or ensure that these jobs are going to our local residents here in the community?
Right. Well, so there is a condition of approval that we're going to report back to Riviera Beach within 6 months. I believe we're going to host a job fair, and we're going to make our best efforts as well to hire qualified contractors. Right. So we're really going to make as much of an effort as possible to ensure that we hire from within the community.
And I appreciate that. The report back is going to be sufficient for us to get a report, but also to execute and to bring those job opportunities to the city, because just a report that we tried or made an attempt is not really sufficient for what we're looking for. It's more of setting up those programs and opportunities for the residents, actually the training. One of the conversations, I made a recommendation that we partner with the school, Palm Beach State College, and the provost to provide these jobs, the training and the educational tools necessary to hire these 100+ jobs. So if we can provide that training while we're going through the construction period, that would be perfect to prepare those residents and really give them the opportunity to actually be gainfully employed. So just
Yeah, that's a great idea.
as a recommendation for us to move forward with it prior to construction or during that process. And also, Mr. Evans, that was part of the discussion, if we can allow for that discussion to be given to procurement, to our development services, and with a list of opportunities, with the contacts with the provost and Palm Beach State College, and also making sure and guaranteeing that these jobs are actually brought to the city. Because follow-ups are good, but at the same time, actually executing and getting it done is what we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions from?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you all for hanging in there with us and getting this done, as well as Mr. Sermons. They did provide a whole lot of praise to your department, so that speaks to your leadership as well. And also, I know with this business coming into that area, they'll be able to help along with our partners' support with their tonnage. So I think it's a win-win for the city, and especially with Dr. Botel's logistic graduates that would be able to put their training to work. So hopefully you'll be able to bring on quite a few of them that have graduated through that program as well. So thank you all so much, and I'm glad you all were able to get it done.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Just to follow up on that quickly, I just this afternoon had a meeting with the vice president of the college, and she assured me that she would be looking for people just like you to find jobs for those graduates of that program. So we'll be in touch. Thanks.
Sounds great.
Yes, thank you so much. Any other questions from the board? Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so, Mr. Sermons, the staff report, the last page gives a legal description. Is that of the port, or is that of the specific, I guess, wouldn't be a parcel, but what exactly is the legal description described in the staff report?
Apologies, if I could grab my computer, I could pull up the staff report, but I don't have it in front of me right now.
It's immaterial. We'll see it on second reading. That's it. I guess I'll follow up, but it's pretty lengthy, but I mean, it's immaterial, so I'll certainly ask at a later date.
Thank you so much, board, for your questions. Thank you for your presentation, both of you, and we really appreciate you doing business with the city of Riviera Beach, providing us some incentive to be able to continue to do business with your organization. And I thank you so much for creating jobs for our city. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lanier.
Yes,
That motion is approved.
thank you. Next
Ordinance
item.
number 4163, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 22 of the city's Code of Ordinances entitled Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Building and Technical Codes, Section 22-37 through 22-60, entitled Reserved, by adopting by reference a new property maintenance code entitled, quote, Riviera Beach Property Maintenance Code, providing for conflict, severability, and codification, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
I move that we approve ordinance number 4163.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I can have Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermons, make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Madam Chair and members of the council, this is the first of 3 ordinances that was discussed last council meeting related to our Clean and Lean initiative, or 3 ordinances that will give the city additional tools to address portions of the city that need to be cleaned up and enhancements of the appearances of them and a reduction of their drain on city resources. The particular ordinance before you, the first of them is the Property Maintenance Code. This is a code that is not new to the city, but it is something that we have not had in several years. 2004 is the last time we have a record of the city having an active property maintenance code. What this ordinance will do is reinstate that code. We have drafted this item based on the International Property Maintenance Code. Our building official modeled this ordinance after it, and it would be adopted as a standalone document via this ordinance. It will create a tool that would be utilized on two sides, one for property owners in the city. The standalone document would be something that could be provided to them and made available to them so they can understand clearly what the minimum standards for property maintenance are in the city of Riviera Beach. This could be especially useful as it comes to landlords or owners of rental properties to make sure they understand what the minimum standards are for their tenant properties. And secondary, for our code compliance staff, currently, if the code compliance staff goes to a home and it is ill-maintained on the exterior, often the code compliance staff has to refer to the nuisance section of the code, saying that this property is in violation of the nuisance code and you're being cited as in violation of it. However, this property maintenance code would enumerate the different portions of a property and what the minimum standards are for it. So in that instance, the code officer would say you are in violation of section 1.23 of the property maintenance code, which states that the exterior of your property walls should be well maintained. They should not have chipped paint, discoloration, cracks in them, and things like that that contribute to an appearance of blight. So with them being able to cite that specific section of the code, it strengthens our code compliance cases that are presented to the magistrate. It allows less ability for property owners or rental property owners to argue the city statutes because it would be enumerated in this code. So the use of it as a manual to property owners, it would go a long way, but also it goes a long way in our code compliance process. So that is the purpose of this code, and staff recommends that City Council approves it.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the board regarding this item?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
So, Mr. Sermons, this section in the property maintenance code that speaks of fees that they would, I guess, be set by resolution, is that something that we should expect to revisit?
It would be referring to the already set fees for violations and code compliance. Is that the section you're referring to?
So this is what I kind of feel like this is incomplete. That section said the fees for activities and services performed by the department in carrying out its responsibility under this code shall be as indicated in the city code or by city resolution.
Yes, it's referring to code compliance fees that already exist in the resolution in any situations where applications for permits related to the building code, those are already established in city code and resolutions.
So where those fees are going to be posted? Because clearly right now, nobody from the public can go onto our city's website and find out any fees other than the business tax receipt fees. So any development services fees, aside from that, I mean, it's whatever staff gives you.
The fees are established by resolution in most cases for city fees, and that is referring to existing fees that already exist. But if there is an issue with the availability of that information on the website, I'll certainly revisit to make sure it's posted.
No, it needs to be, because there's no need to have a property maintenance code that's going to be readily available that reference that you could face a fee to do any kind of improvements, but then you got to still ultimately contact staff to go back and get the schedule of fees. Yeah, I would hope that is.
All right, very good. Are there any other questions from the board?
Madam Chair, can you clarify how much time do I have? Because it seems like every pause I get you to stop me.
The operative word is pause. When you pause, I will go to someone else.
So do you know how long the time is, or is it just at
No,
your
I do
discretion?
know how long the time is. Are you finished, sir?
Can you share with me?
Are you finished?
So
I'm
from
asking you a question.
a
Are you finished, sir?
parliamentary inquiry, which is allowed,
Are you
allows me to
finished
question
with your
whether or
question,
not
sir?
there's rules. And my parliamentary inquiry, and maybe I should address it with the attorney, is what exactly is the permitted
Well, what
time?
you can do, sir, is that you can finish your questions if you have for this gentleman.
Okay, I want to know how much time I have remaining.
You have about 3 minutes remaining.
Okay, so what is the allotted time that?
If there's 10 minutes allowed, sir,
10 minutes?
according to parliamentary procedures, yes.
And I have not given you 7.
Yes, you have, sir.
On this item?
Yes, sir. I got a clock right here.
Okay, so what's the actual time?
You have 3 minutes left, sir. Please proceed with your question.
I yield back.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions for this gentleman? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Lanier.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Thank you. Next item?
We're on to item number 18,
Yes.
ordinance number 4167, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 20, Article 5, Division 2, Cross-Connection Control, to enact cross-connection control regulations to protect the city's drinking water system from contaminants, providing a conflicts clause, providing a codification clause, providing a severability clause, providing a savings clause, and providing an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
I move that we approve ordinance number 4167.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, if I can have Assistant City Manager, Ms. Deirdre Jacobs, make this presentation.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Good evening, Madam Chair, other members of the board, Mr. Evans and Mrs. Nguyen in your respective places. For the record, my name is Deirdre Jacobs, and I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. This particular ordinance is on second reading, and it deals with the adoption of a cross-connection control program. The program is generally set up so that we can have parameters in place and regulations that deal with the systems in place so that we can have activities that staff can conduct that will prevent the contamination of water to our potable water supply system. Things like black backflow devices and other measures are being put in place as far as staff being instructed and trained with regards to being able to install and repair such devices. There is a program that is in place now, but it does not comply with the regulations as far as the state statutes require us to. It was done back in, I believe, 2014, where the state actually established a new system that was put into place. So even though we're a bit behind, we do believe that these particular parameters and systems that have been set up over the last couple of months will help us to get to where we need to get in terms of preventing or assisting with the prevention of the contamination of our water supply system. If there are any questions, I can answer them that the board may have, as well as we work with a consultant from Holtz Engineering that is here this evening to assist with answering specific questions that the board may have.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Jacobs. Are there any questions from the board in regards to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Ms. Jacobs, I'm still looking for the manual, and I would think that this is not right for the council if you're telling us we're going to adopt the ordinance that constitutes a manual when we don't even have the manual in the backup. And again, the draft that I seen, Ms. Jacobs, of that cross-connection control manual, and by the way, Madam Chair, I am running my clock, so just in case, you got yours
I'm glad you
accelerated.
reminded me.
I'm already running mine, so, and it's of my time. So, Ms. Jacobs, how do you propose that this is going to come forth? Because the ordinance establishes a manual, and the draft manual establishes fees. So we can't authorize an ordinance without knowing exactly what that manual looks like or what those fees look like. Certainly, if that is adopted, what is the process in order to have that manual amended? And I yield back and turn off the timer, Madam Chair.
So,
Go ahead.
thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. McCoy, thank you for your question. The manual, even though it is associated with the ordinance, what it does is, the manual is an internal document that staff will use and it can be amended from time to time. It's a document wherein it's not a piece of legislation where the board would have to adopt in the way that it would have to adopt this particular ordinance. It's a working document that staff would use in order to carry out, administer, and implement the program.
Follow up?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna start my clock. I got 9
Sir,
minutes,
go ahead, please.
29 seconds.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Jacobs, thank you for that. But I don't understand how regulations can be a working document. If you have the ability to levy fees for non-compliance, that shouldn't be a working document. That shouldn't be held internally. That has to be publicly provided. And I don't understand, and I think members, we're running down a slippery slope if we adopt an ordinance that says that we have a manual when none of us, probably only me, have actually read the manual. And there was a lot of things that I seen in the manual that referenced us back to the code, and I brought this up to Ms. Nguyen, and I don't see the manual has been provided in the backup. So if we adopt something, we're literally adopting a manual that's a phantom manual that, quite frankly, nobody has, and I think that that's going to create a problem. Stopping. I'm at 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
All right, thank you, sir. Is that it for your question?
It is a question. I mean, that's not possible, Ms. Jacobs.
So, sir, with due respect to your opinion, based on my understanding and the way that we've established the program, the manual is an internal document for staff to use to administer and implement the program. And it's a document wherein from time to time, if we needed to make changes to it, we could do so. The ordinance is a piece of legislation that the board would approve or disapprove at your desire, to establish the actual regulations of the program with regards to what the state requires.
Follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
Start my time at 8 minutes, 45 seconds. Ms.
Sir.
Jacobs, have you finalized the manual?
No, sir, we haven't.
Okay, so this is just the exercise of adopting something that we haven't even finalized. What if we disagree with what's in the manual? Is there any recourse for the board?
So, Mr. McCoy, we're not asking
8 minutes, 28 seconds.
Go ahead, Ms. Jacobs.
The staff is not asking you to adopt the manual. It's asking you if you would consider adopting the ordinance.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
8 minutes, 27 seconds.
Sir, hold on. Let's be clear here. You have 10 minutes per question to ask.
Okay, let me pause my time because you're speaking.
Yes, you can pause it. You have 10 minutes per question to ask, but my role as the chair is to give everyone an opportunity to speak. So if I want to come back to you in the middle of your time, I can. You still have that time left. I'm just telling you that I'm not going to let you monopolize the opportunity for other individuals on the board to be able to speak. Go ahead, proceed, sir.
1 second, I'm teeing up my clock. 1 second. Starting at 8 minutes, 27 seconds again. So, Ms. Jacobs, but, I'm just really, and, this is what's kind of hard for me and difficult, because I literally asked this question in the beginning of May, and here we are, we still have this item. We went through first reading, and it was my understanding that the cross-control connection manual would be adopted. And the reason why that's important, because if you read the actual ordinance, which I'm going to just take a second, because I only have a few, according to the chairperson, it specifically provides for reference to the city's cross-connection control manual, and it says it may be amended from time to time and is available for inspection from the Riviera Beach Utility Special District. So I guess I'm not exactly sure how this is supposed to work, that we're adopting a code of ordinances where we don't even know exactly what the manual consists of. So, I mean, I'll yield back, but even Ms. Nguyen, I think I asked this question of you. You're referencing the manual, and then when you look at the manual, it's going back to reference the code of ordinances. So it doesn't make sense, and I'm not going to support it. I yield. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Let me give you my timer. It is 7 minutes, 7 seconds.
Very good, sir. I will make a note of that. Are there any other questions from the board in regards to this item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Jacobs, the cross connections, will these be utilized and able to be utilized with the new water plant that we'll be installing?
Sir, the cross-connection program, it doesn't necessarily deal with the water plant itself. The cross-connection program is a program that establishes the regulations for us to be able to install backflow devices and to be able to determine whether or not, if those units are not working properly, whether or not they provide for some type of contamination to our water system. So even when we construct our new water plant, the cross-connection program would still exist. The backflow devices would still be required.
Okay, so the backflows will be required regardless of the plant once we do install the new
Yes,
water
sir.
plant. And the cross-connection program, we're going to talk about the fees in the next item and the cost for the residents on commercial and residential, but the actual program that we're just updating, and I think we had a conversation in reference to just updating the code and the ordinance for it. I guess my only concern is it's going to be on the next item with the fees, but just making sure that once we actually do and set this cross-connection up, that it's not going to affect the new water plants, it's not going to affect our residents. But the fees that we're going to talk about on the next item are kind of the concern that I had earlier. So I'll support this, but moving forward with the fees is something I want us to really address.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Ms. Jacobs in regards to this item?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead, sir.
if I may. Ms. Jacobs, with regards to the manual, you stated that the manual is an internal working document. Is there anything incorporated in the manual that would levy a fee or adversely impact the residents? Or is it a mechanism that outlines the maintenance requirements, the expectations for testings, et cetera? Is there something in the manual that invariably could affect the property owner to where they needed to come to seek relief from the district or the board or what have you?
No, sir. The manual is simply a document that staff would use in order to implement the program. It would provide different guidelines and directions for us to be able to do what we need to do on a daily basis.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lanier.
Yes,
Motion approved.
thank you. Next item?
Item number 19, resolution number 5721, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, adopting cross-connection control program fees and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Evans?
So moved.
I'm sorry, go ahead for the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Very good, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, if I can have the Assistant City Manager, Ms. Deirdre Jacobs, make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Again, for the record, my name is Deirdre Jacobs. I'm the Assistant City Manager here with the City of Riviera Beach. Resolution number 5721 is a document that simply asks that the board please consider the fees that would be associated with the particular cross-connection program that you just approved. The fees are generally minimal, and they don't technically affect any of our residents unless the residents have unless the customers, the types of backflow devices that are associated with those certain residential customers have a propensity to cause some type of high hazard or contamination for our potable water system.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Jacobs?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Ms. Jacobs, could you outline some of those factors or some of those residents that may be affecting the backflow, water flow?
So, excuse me, you're asking, could you please ask that question again?
What residents would it actually affect that?
If there is a particular customer and the unit is a residential unit, in that unit there may be a pool. There may be a pool at that particular residence, or it might be a resident that has a fire line there that exists at their unit. units like that, maybe there might be a residential unit that also has some type of business that operates there, maybe like a barber shop or a beauty salon at that particular customer's property. Those are units that would be considered to have a high propensity of contamination to our system. Those types of residential units would be affected with the $50 fee.
And I believe you also said irrigation systems as well?
Yes, irrigation systems as well.
So residents with irrigations on their single-family properties, pools, would possibly be receiving this fee for this backflow.
And it's only the initial fee, so that's a one-time fee.
So the annual fee that would not be a part of what the residential?
No,
resident-
there's a $50 initial fee, and that would be at the time that the backflow unit was initially installed at that particular property. The other fee would be the $15 annual fee.
So there is an annual fee for the resident?
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
So whether it's commercial, residential, they will have an annual fee, and whether it's commercial, residential, it's going to be a $15 fee.
Actually, I believe for the residential, is it a, excuse me, Mr. Hunter? I think it may be a 2-year fee as opposed to the 1-year fee for the residential ones that have the high hazard. Could you help me out?
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Hunter. You can
Hunter.
answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Good evening. For the record, Stephen Hunter of Holtz Consultant. Good evening to the council. To answer the question, I like to throw out a number. You all have about 13,500 water customers in your service area. This cross-connection control only affects about 3,000 customers. Of the 3,000 customers, and we're still doing your inventory on your system, you only have about 100 to maybe 150 residential customers that will be affected by a biannual report. So those are the only ones will be affected. Now, that's only residential. All of your commercials will be affected because they have to have their devices tested yearly, and so all of your commercials will be meeting the $15 fee if you all pass that.
Okay. Follow up, Madam
Well,
Chair.
actually, Mr. Hunter, the $15 fee would go along whether or not they passed it or not, right?
Yeah, and the way it reads is, so back up with the program. Every backflow device, and let's use a number of somewhere around 2,500, 3,000 backflow devices that you all have in your system. Each one of those devices get tested once a year per the state mandate. When that test report comes into your city, we're recommending that you charge $15 for that test report to come in and be handled through your administrative staff. Now, the plumbing industry, the industry out there, they don't submit reports, bad reports. They just don't do that. So it's not like your customer is going to be faced with submitting 2 and 3 reports on one backflow per year. The only reason one of your customers will submit a second report on a device will because they had damage to the device. And at that point in time, they have to submit a second report. But under normal conditions, your water users, they'll be charged $15 per year per device.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
do we have a history of problems with backflow devices? Has this been an ongoing situation that we've had, or why did we do this? Because there was an issue?
Okay, I can give you some issues. Riviera Beach has not had an issue.
Oh.
Delray Beach had an issue, $3 million. It just took place in the past 2 to 3 months, but it took about 18 months of study.
Right.
West Palm Beach, 2007, had a major hit with backflows. You don't find the problem often, but when it happens, and what it does, it affects your entire drinking water supply. So what do? You protect your supply to the best of your ability.
So this is
Dr.
preemptive.
Botel?
This is preemptive. We just
Yeah,
want to
it
be sure
is.
it
We
doesn't.
haven't had any issues, but in an abundance of caution,
Yeah.
we're preparing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, very good. Are there any other questions about this item?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
All right. So, to the point that was made earlier, Ms. Jacobs, the manual itself, right? Does that incorporate the fees? Was it going to be solely this resolution?
Actually, I can't remember if we outlined the fees that
Because I
being
thought that's the
adopted here in
question
the
that Mr. Evans
resolution.
asked.
I'm sorry?
I thought Mr. Evans just asked, does the manual have, you know, a schedule of fees or adverse effects on the customers?
Okay, excuse me if I may answer. The manual talks about the fees. The manual talks about you have to submit a report. You know, you have to submit the report to the city in order to show that your device is in compliance. The manual mentions a $15 fee on that app, on that part of it.
Okay, so,
Okay.
so the answer would be yes, that the manual does include the fees then, if you said,
It mentions, I don't want to wordsmith, the manual mentions fees, so I don't know how we're putting it together. We talk about it because there's a cost associated with any work that's performed under the manual.
okay. My next question is, does the manual provide that the city or the utility special district can bring a lawsuit against a person for enforcement?
The manual speaks of the city taking the position of shutting off the water.
But that's not the question.
Well, I can only tell you what the manual says. There's nothing in the manual that talks about lawsuits. The manual says this, it says it gives the water purveyor the authority to protect their drinking water.
Madam Chair, I reclaim my time.
Wait a minute, hold on, let him finish, let him finish. Go ahead, sir.
So by actions that the water purveyor takes to protect their drinking water against the public, basically shuts off the water. From that point, if it gets to a lawsuit, I don't know how that's handled, but you're going to shut off the water to prevent contamination in your entire water supply.
So would the answer be yes, no, or you're not sure?
I'm not sure then, lawsuits, I'm not sure about
Well,
lawsuits.
and this is exactly what my concern was, because the draft that I got clearly says the city has the right to enjoin you in a lawsuit for violations of the manual. And I'm just so concerned as to how we can get so far into talking about litigation when the manual is not even published for us as board members to review. And this draft that I have is from the month of April. So that's why, you know, as much as you may not agree with me, I'm trying to get to a point that we cannot sit here and adopt some manual blindly when the manual provides that a person unknowingly can be sued in court by the city or the utility special district. And I'm not going to support the item. Just members, I just kind of keep this in mind. We're supporting and passing a manual and then now adopting fees for something that we've not even seen. So I yield back.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other questions about this item? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Botel,
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson,
No.
Councilperson McCoy,
No.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Lanier.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
All right, very good. Next item. Thank you so much for your
Madam Chair.
presentation, Ms. Jacobs. Mr. Hunter, thank you so much. We appreciate the fact that you are being preemptive in trying to protect our water supply. We really appreciate that. And thank you for your exemplary work, Ms. Jacobs. Next item, please.
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, let us pause here because it's 11:27, and we do have public comment. I don't want to get into the next item before that. So let me start with our public comment section of our agenda. And there is something that I have to read. It says, please be reminded, the City Council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the front desk. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or the building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Public comment shall begin at 7:30 unless there is no further business of the City Council, which in that event, it shall begin sooner. In addition, if any item is being considered at 7:30, then comments from the public shall begin immediately after the item has been concluded. Any person who would like to speak during public comments, please fill out a public comment card and give it to the staff before the public comment section is announced.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have public comment cards. At this particular time, the acceptance of public comment cards is now closed. Billy E. Brooks, Bessie Brown, Marvelous Washington.
Good evening, Mayor, Chair and council members. My name is Billy Brooks, 1325 West 28th Street here in Riviera Beach. I'm here tonight just to, first of all, thank the council for allowing the Riviera Beach Cares Coalition to come before you last week, last council meeting, to do a presentation to talk about the services that we're giving to homeless families in Riviera Beach. Good news is that as a result of that, the Good Company, that is one of your clients, called us right away and made a very generous donation and are now agreeing to enter into a partnership with us. So I just want to thank you for that opportunity because it did open up a door for us. I do have a question now. I understand that the RBC was approved for funding in the city's annual budget, but we've not received any information as to when or how we would be able to access those funds. Right now, the board members, through their generosity, is providing money out of pocket to help with some of the residents, the homeless families that we're working with. So at some time, we really would like to know when we'll be able to get those funds. Maybe you can't answer right now, but maybe later on we will get something because we really need it. And so with that, I just want to thank you all for allowing us that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bessie Brown, Marvelous Washington, Mr. Willie Millsap.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can speak into the mic closer. You can hear it better.
Good evening. Is this better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm here about. I didn't have a call for item 18, but if there's a manual, I think there should be a manual. I'm trying to find out how can I get a copy of the manual, and it's actually written. It's actually written in item 19. I'd like to know how can I get a copy of the manual, and common practice is to approve these ordinances. These resolutions should be approved by ordinances. Everything that's you do the resolution for one shot. Ordinance on first and second reading gives people an opportunity to have something to speak on. Now, and you all have practiced resolutions on so much till citizens can't even speak on anything. 13th Street railroad tracks are horrible. How can we do something about that? What can we do to have 13th Street railroad track redone, because it just all it does is tears your car up. And I'd like a response on that. And then the intersection at Blue Heron and Broadway, that's just the caving in week by week. You need to do something with that intersection at Blue Heron and Broadway.
Thank you, ma'am.
Marvelous Washington, Mr. Willie Millsap, J.B. Dixon.
Good evening, councilpersons, chair, mayor, and city manager. I didn't get a chance to speak on the last item because I came in a little late, but I do have some questions and corrections as it relates to that last item. As I read it, that these fees will be put forth on the residents due to if you have an irrigation system or a pool at your residential area. In the neighborhood that I live in, majority of the homes in my neighborhood has an irrigation system and or a pool. So he stated that it would be only about 100 residential houses or homes that be affected by this. That's not true. He also stated that the city of West Palm Beach has enacted something similar. That's not true. That was reversed because it was deemed that those devices were unnecessary. So my questions are, at the beginning of the pandemic, you guys voted on to increase the water rates by a certain percentage for a certain amount of years. Mr. McCoy did file a lawsuit stating that the residents were not properly communicated about this increase. Who's to say that you guys are going to properly communicate this to residents that they have to install this device? I mean, my water was interrupted multiple times last month, and the first time I didn't receive any communication. The second time I received communication 9 hours after the interruption, and at 11 o'clock that night, that's when I saw on the news that I needed to boil my water, considering my water had been off since 9 o'clock that morning. And I was told that I had to take this up with the utility district. Now, I mention that to say that when my water bill is due, or if it's threatened to be turned off, I get an email. So I don't understand why that same communication can't be used as it relates to boil water notices. Now, back to the original reason why I'm up here about this last item. You guys are willing to put forth fees on residents again during a rough time of the year. I don't understand why you guys continuously approve additional fees on residents due to the city negligence. The amount that we're paying each month, the percentage that we're paying each month, I have a question about that. Where's that percentage going to? What is it paying for? Why is it not paying for these devices? Because who's to say that it's going to be $15 each year as an annual fee? Because cost of living increases. So you're not going to tell me in 2021, 2022, 2023 that you're going to still be expecting us to pay just $15 to test these devices. I mean, it's getting really redundant, and it's actually disheartening to see that you guys continuously voting on items that's causing undue financial hardship to residents in our city, and during the worst time in our national history, during a pandemic in which residents are really not paying much attention to what's going on locally because they're so distracted with what's going on at the national level and the state level. You really need to reconsider what you guys just voted on.
Thank you.
Mr. Willie Millsap, J.B. Dixon, Mary Brown.
Good evening. Mr. Willie W. Millsap, Riviera Beach. I have questions that I'd like to address the council as well as our city manager pertaining to certain things that are happening west of the tracks. First of all, I want to thank y'all for what y'all did during the time that you gave away the food. You assisted the individuals that need to take shots and everything. But I'm asking the question, why is it that everything to be done in the city has to be done east of the tracks? Why is it that the council persons that came to our residents in our neighborhood and asked us to vote for them, they don't do anything west of the tracks for the individuals there? Are we living in a third world country? Or just this city? Because what you do represents everybody east of the tracks. Nobody west of the tracks has benefited from anything that y'all have done since you've been sitting on the council seat. Y'all say you're building a fire station for the city on a corner of Congress and Blue Heron. Can somebody explain to me, because this is my thought, who got paid to buy that corner? Because how can you get a fire truck out of there in a major intersection to a fire? You know, you're talking a major highway within the city itself. Also, my question is, if I travel down 95, I don't see nothing on 95 that says, welcome to the city of Riviera. We have service station, we have this, we have that. There's no identity pertaining to the city of Riviera. But when you get inside, you can see everything for Singer Island. Y'all put up a new marquee up there. On that new marquee, you see Singer Island. You see all the things east of the tracks, but y'all still have not addressed us. That's west of the tracks, and putting anything that we can identify with. Y'all allow all the mom and pop stores and the service station to serve food. Why do y'all do that? Do they have to have license? Do they have to have health inspection or what? Y'all don't take y'all family there to eat. So why would y'all expect for us to take our family there to eat? Why is it some of y'all can't go out and solicit and bring us some business here to the city? We got open land and stuff that's out there to be utilized if you want to buy something that somebody to put something up. The only thing that has been done in this city over the years is you build a building on the corner of 13th and Barack Obama, and JW's store changed from Martin Luther King corner to 4th Street. That's the only thing that's been done for the city on that side of the tracks. But again, we got Callaway Complex over there, so when y'all start giving away something, when y'all start having events, why can't y'all have something over there? Or is it because we're in that predominant black neighborhood? that y'all don't want to be aggravated with or want to address with the people? Because y'all do not give us our due. And we earn that respect. I said something to y'all before. When residents have to catch public transportation, they don't have a bench nowhere from Blue Heron, Silver Beach Road, or the First Street to sit down on the bench.
Thank you, sir.
Nowhere. You are very welcome.
Thank you.
J.B. Dixon, Mary Bram, Willie Wiley.
J.B. Dixon, Singer Island and Riviera Beach. I also have some concerns about water notification when you have to boil your water. There have been, in the last month or so, instances both on the west side and on the east side, on the island, of water interruptions, after which people are asked to boil their water. Now, I realize that boiling your water after such a brief interruption is, an abundance of caution, but people are very concerned about it. So, to me, you have to get to those people before they brush their teeth, before they cook, before they shower in that water that they believe is contaminated, and in fact may be contaminated. So, I think we have a system, is it called a red code or red button? I know I registered for it. Red what?
Code Red.
Code Red. And Code Red is supposed to give you notifications like if there's a hurricane or whatever, and that's why I signed up. So I wonder if people have signed up for that, and if that system is capable of selecting from among all of our addresses, can you pinpoint, I think IT can do this, pinpoint neighborhoods. So if you know that there are 4 streets that need to boil their water, you can get that out instantly because that is a text or a call. And one thing people always have with them is their phone. They may not see the door hanger that you put out or the flyer that you put out several hours later, sometimes the next day later. They can come in through their garage and not see anything at the front door. And those people are concerned on both sides of the bridge about these boiled water notices. Considering the fact that we are going to be building a new water treatment plant, the probability of those interruptions is realistically going to be increased. And there's going to be far more of them. And so I would really encourage IT and staff to work out a system where within 15, 20 minutes, people who are affected can be notified through Code Red. And then we need to really encourage people to sign up for that program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Bram, William Wiley.
Good evening, good peoples. Mary Bram, Riviera Beach. First of all, I would like to say, Ms. Chairperson Shirley Lanier, continue. You're doing a great job. Nothing is never dictated nowhere in history in any government that any chair belongs to anyone. It is entirely left up to the governing board. A chair is not guaranteed when your character and your behavior is displeasing. And that goes for chair as well as vice chair or any council person. I stood here last year and I tried to tell you, don't go against we as residents because we know what to do. And we will do what we will do in this election here. And it's so strange because now we talk about all of this that is going on now. We are in a new century here. COVID, every historical event in history, those of us who went to school, colleges and stuff know, every historical event carries a different century to it. And we are in a new century here. And we have to govern and we have to live and do business in what we're in now. It is no going back. That you did do, you shouldn't do it now because that's past and gone. And then you're so amped to talk about monies and stuff. You have some council people up there. See Ms. Brown wearing her money outfit tonight here. Because, see, some of you council people sit up there, and that's all you do is run around here spending the taxpayers' money. Yes, Ms. Bram has been engaged behind the scene. I got a whole lot of people in to do the vaccine. And I want to thank the general public because I buried my sister March of this year. And you all came out in full force to support Ms. Bram. And Ms. Bram got you all the vaccine. I've been vaccinated as well, and I'm encouraging all other residents to do the same thing too. And on Monday night, that event was terrific. The icy, we like that. It's good to see new vendors coming in here without taking the advantage of us. And the popcorn, you can smell it. It just melted in your mouth. And the macaroni and cheese was exquisite. Never tasted anything like it. And the icy, yes. We as kids and adults, we like that because we want to see new things coming into our city here. And we want to move the things that need to be moved in our city here. And we are tired of some of you all going after this man here unnecessary. You must go. When Ms. Bram say you're going to go, you're going to go. Javar sitting back there and I told him in 2019, oh, you're getting up out of this place here because of your conduct. And the way that you have utilized this city for your own benefits. Don't think that we citizens, we are not asleep, because we not. Support these new vendors. Thank you.
Thank you. William Wiley.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is William Wiley. I'm born and raised here in Riviera Beach. Honors algebra school teacher at Roosevelt Middle School, and also was at public Palm Beach Lake. So a lot of my students were here in the city, in our city. First of all, I want to start off by talking about something good about our city, about the police exposure. I know a lot of people complain about the police, and I don't see that issue because I have a second job where I work at the Palm Beach County Courthouse. Myself and Mr. McCoy graduated as a couple years ago as process servers, and a lot of my business is here in the city, in Lake Park and in Palm Beach Gardens. And I see a lot of good police exposure here. Every time I'm around, I see the police officers in different positions. So just in case if something happens, they're ready to go at it. And I've always seen them, always wave at them, speak to them. And I think they're doing a good job. But what I am going to ask the community to do is to make sure that we give our help to the police department, because the community is only as good as what we provide, the safety for our city, and assisting our police officers in doing their job. So please, let's do that. I would like to thank also Cedric Clark along with Mr. Bailey for Public Works. They're agreeing to do some work inside the Federal Gardens. We have a couple areas there that need a lot of work as far as the alleyway area, and they have agreed to come in the next 2 weeks to get a lot of things cleaned out and done, because I was paying for a lot of this stuff myself, and now to find out that we can actually get this stuff done for myself and a couple neighbors to get some properties cleaned out. I'd like to thank Mrs. Shirley Lanier for the beautification project that she got in Federal Gardens for the UPS to donate money there to be able to assist in our city to help with the traffic and be able to make it a safer community. And I have to agree with Mr. McCoy with what he said earlier, that we don't want this with new businesses coming in to seem like we're shaking them down. We don't want to have that kind of atmosphere. But as Mr. Lawson said also, we want to make it to where when these companies come in, they're investing in something that actually make them feel like they're a part of doing something, to make them part of this community, because they're going to benefit from it also. So we want to make sure we're doing that. And one topic also I want to discuss with Mr. Evans also was that I'm getting a lot of questions from a lot of people, because I managed a couple organizations before I became a school teacher, and a lot of people know me from there and asking me a lot of questions. And so when the new businesses come in, developers, property owners, anyone willing to come into our city, what is the protocol for council members communicating with people who want to do business in our city prior to coming to the meetings? Because if we're going to vote, people are going to vote on these meetings, vote on when they come into our city, what is the protocol so we understand what's going on? Because we don't want anything to be, how to say it nicely, compromised. All right, so I think we need to have so we can understand what's going on in our city to where we know what the rules and regulations are. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, members of the board, that concludes public comments at this time.
That concludes public comment, but we're going to take a 5-minute recess until we come back. We have a 5-minute recess.
Oh, I know. I think about it.
We'd like to resume our meeting of May 19, 2021, regular city council meeting. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we're on item number 20, resolution number 5321, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the purchase of 27 license plate reader systems from Flock Safety, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make annual payments for same, and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have public comment on this item. The acceptance of public comment on this item is now closed.
Can I get a motion for resolution 53?
Motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Mr. Evans?
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Okay.
We'll have Police Chief Nate Osgood make the presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Osgood.
Madam Chair, Pro Tem Billy Anderson, Mayor Ronnie Felder, and Council, good evening. I'm Chief Nate Osgood. I'm here to discuss Resolution 5321. The Police Department, we're seeking to upgrade our license plate readers technology by migrating to a new state-of-the-art platform from Flock Safety. For more than a decade, the Riviera Beach Police Department has leveraged automatic license plate reader technology to effectively identify vehicles subsequently and their drivers involved in commission of a crime. The availability of this resource has consistently produced investigatory leads directly resulting in the identification and conviction of numbers of criminals across the city and throughout the county. In addition to crime suppression activities, the LPR system has also been credited with locating numerous missing and endangered individuals, such as silver alerts, the amber alerts. LPR has been very effective in that. This technology complement other crime-fighting technology we have, such as shot spotters, security cameras, as well as other database systems inside of the police department working at the Real-Time Crime Center. As with all technology, as you know, technology gets old and it fails. The City of Riviera Beach current LPR system is more than 10 years old. Features such as artificial intelligence, vehicle analytical, and behavior patterns identification will greatly increase our capability by allowing us to directly search for vehicles based on witnesses, description, and rarely include complement vehicle description or license plate information. Our current provider do not do such features. It will require substantial infrastructure investment on our part to develop this capability. As such, for approximately the last 2 years, the police department has been actively evaluating and competing to produce throughout the product, trialing, comparing to both our current system and each other offers. Flock Safety has emerged as the overall best value for our needs. Flock Safety provides the advanced analytical we desire along with the subscription-based service model that requires no infrastructure investment in our part. Each of their LPR cameras cover at least 2 lanes of traffic versus the single lane that our current LPR system provides. The Flock system identifies vehicles not only through the license plates, but also allows investigators to search through make, model, color, and other vehicle characteristics. The Flock Safety has proposed a fixed 27 cameras deployment. This will almost give us 4 times the coverage of our current 7 fixed camera system. The annual cost per camera is $2,500 with a one-time $250 installation fee. This amount to a first-year cost of $74,250. With an ongoing annual cost of $67,500, all pricing is based on the term of Polk County Sheriff's Office competitive RFP, which was also awarded to Flock Safety. The Riviera Beach Police Department currently budgeted $50,000 annually to maintain our current LPR system, which would be used to offset the annual cost of the proposed subscription. For an additional $17,500 annually, the city will essentially receive 4 times the coverage, which would greatly increase the vehicle recognition and search abilities. The initial term of agreement is 1 year and renewed for a subsequent 1-year period. The city can terminate this agreement at any time during the year's period. Council, Madam Chair, any questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So the cameras that we have now in place, we're just going to get rid of them. We can't repurpose them for any reason. We just...
That's correct. We're going to replace them with the upgraded system.
Okay.
Any other questions for the chief? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have a public comment on this item. Mary Brown.
Ms. Mayor Brown, Riviera Beach. Apparently here, I had some deviating questions about this item as well here compared to what we already have. You say this will include 2 lanes instead of 1. Do you find this as a cost-saving mechanism here, you know, compared to what?
Cost saving, ma'am?
Yes.
No, you can't address the chief.
No, I know
you can answer it after she's finished.
But that was one of my questions here. What cost saving compared to what we're gonna be getting here now? And I do know that we had the license plate readers in this city here previously, and I do understand you want to go with a new system here, but also, does this also save us wise? Do you find it is more useful as far as really helping combat the crime that we have in this city here? I was just reading here today, and crime is on the rise all over, not just Riviera Beach, but all over. Yes, yes, yes. I come from a lineage of police officers, Secret Service agents, and all of that. So I do know that data can be falsified, you know, to meet everybody's criteria. But for what we experience in this city here, we have constantly said cameras in these places that we know that are hot spots in our city here. And I'm not going to stand here over and over to say the same thing about cameras that need to be placed in these hot pockets in our city here. You can bring all the technology that you have and want. If you are still not doing what needs to be done, it is useless. And I say that. It is useless. It becomes useless because it's just like kicking against a prick. It's okay doing new things, but you need to do the things that you should be doing. And that's happened in the city as well as the residents. Because I'm not going to ask Miss Sally, Miss Ann, and Miss Sue, or nobody else what none happened on when there's a shooting all over in my neighborhood. I can't sit on my front porch. I can't sit on my patio. Because I'm constantly hearing gunshots that are going off over in this city. And this is not one day. Every week and every day is something that's going on in this city in Riviera Beach. And I know that the residents can attest to it because I'm engaged with them and they say it's the same thing too. So we need better ingenuity and we need to move on the things that we need to move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Are there any questions for the chief on this item?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Chief, can you just give a brief overview of the difference between the license plates for this resolution and the cameras of the next resolution?
Okay, this one is a license plate reader, which would give you the identification of the car, make, model, and the potential owner of the vehicle.
Mhm.
The camera system is different. It's only designed to, it's sort of like a closed circuit television, just monitoring.
Okay.
The license plate reader gives you a little data check on vehicles moving about. And this is actually giving us 4 times the coverage than our current system. And I compared it today as sort of like a upgraded car, such as a Tesla or a BMW, Mercedes, compared to an older model car that was made 20, 30 years ago.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chief. I'm absolutely in support of whatever it's going to take just to improve the quality over there and the support that you need, because your police department is doing a phenomenal job. It just needs additional support. And these cameras, these license plate readers will give you that additional tool, innovative tool to continue to do that job that you guys are doing. With the last speaker that said the gunshots in our community, this will kind of assist with trying to catch some of those individuals that are just shooting guns in our community, that are killing individuals in our community, these additional cameras, and the quality of cameras. And then also the plate readers will allow to catch some of these individuals that are getting away from these sites. So whatever it takes to support and to make sure that we're giving you that support in this area, I'm for. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Chief, similar to the body-worn cameras that has a policy, is there a policy for license plate readers that's currently at the police department?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And without me knowing or revealing much of, the criminal intelligence part, but does the policy speak to how the information can be used and retained and what specifically is prohibited? Or is there some sort of state guidance on this?
Councilman McCoy, I would have to get back to you on that policy, but I do know we have policy about it, written about the license plate readers, and you have obviously information you just can't share with the public. It'd be a time-sensitive matter to the point like you hold it for a period of time, depending on what you pick up on.
Okay. Well, let me ask this plain and simple, and maybe you can or can't answer this. Can these license plate reader information, the data it recovers, be used for something outside of a criminal investigation as it stands under the policy?
I don't think it can.
Well, I mean, obviously criminal and maybe even traffic related, but.
Criminal and traffic, we can use it for that, but just a routine search just to see who's traveling about, no, sir, we will not.
Oh, that is the perfect point that you brought up. Routine searches. So we can't just do routine searches?
No, sir.
Okay, so that's true for automobiles that's driving up the streets. What about people walking down the streets?
The license plate reader will not pick up on people.
No, can we do routine searches for people just walking down the streets?
No, sir.
Okay, what about if they came into, you know what, never mind, I yield back.
All right.
I yield back.
Thank you so much, sir. Are there any other questions for the chief in regards to this item?
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I do know some time ago, the Port of Palm Beach purchased some of those license plate readers for us. Did we by any chance reach out to them and try to see if they wanted to partner with us again on supplying us with some support on that?
Pro Tem, I do not know the answer to that, but I could research and find out and get back with you.
Okay, well, maybe there's some other thing we may be doing down the line that we could probably reach out to them for, since they did do that for some time ago. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I did have conversations with the Port of Palm Beach, and they have put in for another safety security grant to assist in acquiring some monies that the city can utilize for public safety devices. They haven't received notification if they've received the grant, but they have submitted for a grant to assist us.
Very good. Any other questions for the chief? Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy. Yes. Councilperson Botel. Pro Tem Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Lanier.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you. Next item.
Resolution number 5421, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, approving the purchase and installation of 24 cameras, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make payment to Broadcast Systems in the amount of $75,059.40 and provide an effective date. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
A motion for this item, please.
So moved. Second.
Very good. Chief?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Council, Chair, Mayor. Okay, once again, this is Resolution 5421. The Police Department will seek to enhance our deployment and security cameras throughout the city by purchasing and installing an additional 24 cameras throughout the city. This is an addition to what we have. For over the decade, the Riviera Beach Police Department has successfully leveraged cost-effective technology to suppress criminal activity and to provide critical evidence needed to prosecute offenders. Security cameras have proven to be a reliable and efficient crime-fighting resource for law enforcement agencies in this city and just throughout the county and the country. The network of cameras are streamed to the Riviera Beach Real-Time Crime Center, allowing officers to monitor large sections of the city from a central location with only a minimal amount of staffing. Cameras are used in conjunction with other crime-fighting technologies such as shot spotters, license plate readers. The video footage has been instrumental in pursuit of criminal offenders and has led to numerous arrests, convictions, as well as the recovery of stolen property. The police department received a proposal from Broadcast System in the amount of $75,059.40 for the purchase and installation of 24 cameras. The proposal includes the cameras licenses, data, electrical components, and as well as the complete installation of 24 various cameras throughout the city. The price is based on the GSA contract number GS-07F-173GA. Any questions, Madam Chair?
Any questions for the chief in regards to this item?
I have a question for the chief. It's not
Yes, go ahead.
not necessarily about this item, but I wonder at some point, could we get a report from the sheriff's department about the recent goings-on the island? And people are asking, and I don't have too much information, so.
Yes, we have a meeting set up with the sheriff's department, the sheriff's office, to address the recent crimes that's in their area that's adjacent to the city of Riviera Beach.
Okay.
And we're going to be working jointly with them. We have a signed MOU that we can take enforcement in those areas, such as Ocean Reef, Phil Foster. And so we're going to be meeting to see what collaborative effort we can put together to help combat the crime. And also, we're taking a look at social media accounts to see whenever they have large-scale events, not just at those parks, anywhere throughout the city. So a lot of time they seem to want to post their events on social media, and that'll give us a head start to get out there and at least monitor what's going on.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Thank you so much for bringing this item forward, Chief. I do have this thing about Big Brother in terms of cameras and things following people around, but I do understand that we need every piece of help that we can get to be able to kind of stem some of the crime in the city, and I implore the residents who live in this city that it is going to take more than readers and cameras and police to be able to do this. It's going to be up to us to be able to do this. So I want the residents to become involved in trying to stem this wave of crime that we have, and I'm sure that as we move forward and as the years pass, we're gonna have crime, and it's not going anywhere. It may go down, but it's not going anywhere. And I want to be able to live in a city that we feel like we can be safe, and I don't have to duck at night when I hear gunshots, because I'm very, very upset about how this wave of crime has came in the city of Riviera Beach. But I do understand that it's going to take us as residents to be able to fix it. And I really appreciate the chief bringing this forward so that we can have something to be able to move forward to help us to save our city. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we're now down to item number 22, which is a discussion and deliberation item. It is an ordinance that will be coming back before you based upon discussion this evening. The heading of the ordinance will read, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter to establish the Office of Independent Auditor, providing for powers and duties of the auditor, creating an audit committee, and establishing such powers and duties of the committee, requiring an audit plan and annual report from the auditor, providing the auditor access to city staff, records, and property, requiring peer reviews of the independent auditor's office, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
As this is a discussion item, Mr. Evans?
Yes, Madam Chair and members of the board, I will ask that the internal auditor, Ms. Elena Georgiev, make the presentation this evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Manager, Madam Attorney. Thank you for having me here tonight. During the recent financial audit, the external auditors commented that the city does not have an ordinance vetted and approved by the governing body related to the internal audit department. The document we're presenting to you tonight for your consideration is based on the standards adopted by the Government Accountability Office, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and the Association of Local Government Auditors.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mrs. Elena for this item? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you give those acronyms? I heard you say GAO.
Of course.
And what was the other two? I'm sorry, somebody had a telephone that was ringing, and I couldn't hear.
It's turned off. It's okay,
So,
of
one more
course.
time.
So the first one is the Government Accountability Office.
Okay.
The second is the Institute of Internal Auditors, which is the IAA. And the last one I mentioned is the Association of Local Government Auditors.
Follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
So, Ms. Nguyen and Ms. Georgie, my question is, what's proposed in this ordinance for the audit committee, is that the same as the statutorily required audit selection committee, or is that going to be a separate committee?
Well,
Madam Chair, if I may, with regards to that, the intent behind this audit committee is that it would still handle the responsibilities that the statute provides, but we didn't want to, in best practices and based on the research of the internal auditor, that there is an audit component that is necessary and it needs to be enumerated in some type of policy. Plus, we wanted to have the office more robust and have the ability to function in a more active way than it's done in the past. Traditionally, in the past, you all will hear from the internal auditor once in a blue moon, and we wanted to have more activities, more involvement, and we thought that we beefed up the responsibilities and duties of the audit committee to be able to facilitate that. So they will work hand in hand with the auditor, and the auditor would provide the findings and their audit plan that would be reviewed by the committee. So yes, it would be that committee, but they would also have additional duties and responsibilities.
Follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I appreciate that, but Ms. Georgie, even from your experience, and even if Mr. Sherman can, offer his, but, the very committee that selects the auditor is also going to be the same committee that's going to support in providing internal auditing functions and reviews. That seems like that lacks the total independence of it all.
Well, the audit committee will be responsible for selecting the external auditors and also overseeing the audit function, which is traditionally how it's set up. I am not sure I really see the problem, the independence issue.
Follow up.
Yes, go ahead.
So from a publicly traded company that, you know, subject to SEC in Sarbanes-Oxley, I can see it, but from government accounting, is your recommendation that those are the same committees? And if so, can you give me an example of a government organization that they act as both?
Of course. I will tell you that, for example, the City of West Palm Beach, their audit committee oversees the function, and they also select the external auditor.
Okay. All right, good enough.
Thank you so much, sir. Any other questions for Ms. Selena? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
So I'm clear, we're not taking any action, but this was to get feedback?
Yes. You got some more?
No, but I guess I can always have a conversation or a meeting to kind of better understand some of these things. And, you know,
Yeah, it is kind of a lot of, it's kind of intense on there, yeah.
Well, you know, here's what I was going to say, and I had this conversation with someone, and this deals, Ms. Elena, not too far away, because I want to make sure that we understand also the functions and the members understand the functions, because us as board members, we serve as a governing body, and that has the level of governance over, you know, the three organizations that we serve as members over. But I would think that's the case with the audit selection committee, but I'm certainly going to like to have a meeting. I think we're scheduled to meet, right? So, yeah, I'll follow up with a meeting, so.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Elena, for your presentation. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item number 23, selection of women for the water tank art project. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do have public comment on this item. The acceptance of public comment on this item is now closed.
Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, if the mayor would indulge us, I'd like for the assistant to the city manager, Ms. Marcia Noel, to make the presentation with regards to the public meetings that have been held in regards to the two females that are being proposed to be placed on the water tank.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, Ms. Noel.
All right. Oops. I'm trying to set up here. Okay, good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, Ms. Nguyen, and everyone else who's joined us this evening. So just as a brief update, since our last presentation regarding the water tank art project, we last discussed that we would be going out to the community to garner feedback in terms of the two African-American women to be selected to be placed on the project. As it currently stands, we have two males that have been approved by you, which is Martin Luther King Jr. and President Barack Obama. And so since then, we've held two community meetings. We've held one April 19th and also May 11th regarding the selection of women. And then in addition to that, we had an online poll through SurveyMonkey that was circulating online and that we've pushed out through some of our communication platforms as well. And to this date, we have received responses, and we've also received 12 individuals that were shared or sent over to the mayor's office to be considered in the poll. And I can list to you all the women that were provided to us for the poll. And then I can also share with you who the top two picks were. So briefly, I'll just list all their names. We received Mary McLeod Bethune, Serena and Venus Williams, Mary Eliza Mahoney, Alice Dunnigan, Wilma Rudolph, Shirley Chisholm, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Charlotte Ray, Michelle Obama, and Mae Jemison. So all of these women were listed on the poll. In addition to the poll, there was a section where individuals can also share any names or ideas that probably weren't listed. But so far, we've gotten the top two picks as Harriet Tubman and the second, Michelle Obama. So we're presenting these two individuals to you for consideration and for your blessing to move forward to add them to the project.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Noel?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't have questions. I have a couple of comments that I feel compelled to make because constituents from all over the city really responded to something that was put on Nextdoor, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a communications vehicle that many people in the community use to express their feelings. Someone put something up there about the it's called Water Tower Painting contract, and it generated I'm looking at it right now, it generated 239 comments. Questions about how many people attended the April 19th and May 11th sessions. Was there input from a sufficient number of people in the community to make this kind of a decision? Comments about the fact that the city, although it's 69% African American, there are other people, other races represented in the city, and why weren't they considered? And these are not my comments. These are comments coming from people who reported these things on Nextdoor. So I'm just wondering if you can give me some of those answers. What was the purpose of, what was the intent, what group of people was intended to be honored? Was it civil rights leaders, or was it popular figures in sports and media and so forth? I'm trying to think what else they asked. Sorry. Well, those are a beginning. I think people are questioning how many responses there were in the community. Generally, when the CRA does a project like this, they have a number of community meetings, and many, many people have input into it. So I just wondered if you could respond to how many people had input. And I guess to placate some of the questions that came up as a result of this Nextdoor thing, what's the future for the water tank? Will there be other people, other races involved, other kinds of people up there? And is the intent to honor civil rights leaders, or is it in general to say these are people we like, so we want them up there?
Right. Oh, yeah.
The last thing I'll say is, well, it's kind of a moot point now because we've already started down this road. Many people said, why don't you just put something up there about the environment, because that should really represent Riviera Beach. Go ahead.
Yep, no, that's fine. And I've actually provided a more comprehensive presentation at our last community meeting. I understand every time we hold one, it's someone's first time, getting the information on the project. So just to kind of start from the beginning, back in October of last year, the mayor brought before you the idea of doing a water tank mural. And the purpose of that was ahead of what was going to be I think, Black History Month project. Obviously, we've bypassed that in terms of not meeting that particular deadline. There was a lot of work on the back end that had to be done, and so we're still continuing down that vein of representing Black History Month, or supporting or commemorating African Americans that have had a positive impact on American society. In terms of what types of individuals were to be considered, whether they're activists or persons from a particular background. From what I understand, we've gotten feedback from across the board. There wasn't in our community engagement where individuals in the community have only wanted the persons to be selected to be of a particular background. I think they were open across a diversity of areas. So we've received, as you can tell just from the list of the African American women that I listed, they're from various backgrounds, from athletes, entertainers, to activists, politicians. And then in terms of the community meetings, on average, we've had 20 to 30 individuals respond. So for this poll, we've had approximately 30 as well. So that's basically the average that we're seeing in terms of response level. And we've held three community meetings, but that's on top of having these discussions at the city council meeting, and then also receiving responses through emails and participation with the poll. So we've carried quite a few activities, and we've done our very best pushing out that information online through our newsletter of approximately 1,700 emails. We've pushed it out on social media. We've pushed it out at some of these other meetings that we've held. So in terms of the purpose of this, or where this is going to go, so like I said, this is still down the vein of what the original intent was, which was to recognize African Americans that have made an positive impact on American society for all peoples. But in terms of where it could go, because in the community engagement activities we've held, we've heard ideas about, well, maybe in the future we can consider locals local figures who have made a positive impact here in Riviera Beach. Ideas about putting up quotes, and then also, to your point, considering individuals from other backgrounds as well. So we know that because there's such a support and interest in the idea of this mural, maybe transforming into something else, I think that maybe this project could be broken down into phases. Maybe for now, it starts off from what it was originally intended to be, but then it transforms over time to include other individuals or other symbols of progress and things of that sort for the city. So this is not necessarily a closed door project. I think that there's opportunities for it to transform over time, but just to stick with the intent that was initially articulated to the community when it first came out, we've continued down that vein as long as you approved.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in regards to this discussion item? I wanted to say as well, I did not vote for this item. I voiced my concern for it initially in regards to the amount of money being spent on a painting for a water tower, when I think that our focus needs to be, you know, what's actually inside the water tower. But that being said, I can't believe that you guys did not propose the notorious RBG for that for that portrait. Notorious RBG is the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I thought that that was a very good icon to, if you can add. But as you know, I do not support this item based on the fact that I just feel like there's just too much money going for a mural. Are there any other discussions about this item?
Okay, so the request is basically if we could have your blessing to move forward with the two women that were offered this evening, which is Michelle Obama and Harriet Tubman.
You know my stance.
I know. If you want us to bring this back, we can, if you need more time. The artist is still moving forward with the two other individuals in the meanwhile. And like I said, this is a 30-day project, and he's expected to start by the end of next week or early the week after, upon receiving the first installment for the payment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your
Okay,
presentation.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we did have a public comment card on this
Oh,
item.
I'm sorry.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, we need some direction from the board. Does the board agree with the two names and wants to move forward with the two names, or what direction would you like for staff to take?
Let us hear this public comment, and then we'll come back to the board and ask them what their direction should be.
Ms. Mayor Bram, Riviera Beach. I too have some reservation about it, not just myself, but I know that under the circumstances, a lot of us, we did not participate in it because basically, I guess with my schedule and stuff, you know, I was unaware, but from the meetings that I saw, I, along with others, felt that the money could be better utilized where it really, really needed to be utilized at, you know, so that's one thing there. But I also, too, have to piggyback on something what Dr. Botel said, too. Even though we are a city that's 69 or 67% minority, we bring that inclusiveness. So, you know, it is so many others, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you know, we thought about her, Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Justice advocate, first black Thurgood Marshall, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, and I can go on and on and on and on and on, because we are a city of many here that should reflect not just Miss Bram, I'm black and I'm African American, but Miss Bram is many. And this is how I like to be looked at with my other comrades, so that people can see our water tower that's not just reflecting us. You know, we don't live here by ourselves. We cannot live here by ourselves. We have to live amongst each other. So I think more or less, I'm not kicking against it, but the monies could have been utilized a little bit much better. And I'm hoping that in the next round that you all really think out of the box a little bit. We more than football and basketball and just, we all know Dr. King. We talk about him every year, every day, 365 days in the year. But we need to be relatable in our city. We have the waterfront. We have the marina. We have the beach. But most of all, we have we the people. And we the people are inclusive with everyone. And this including our children. Because if we just say, well, okay, be Dr. King. Well, I want them to reach for the darn stars and grab the moon as well so they can see others who they can emulate and be good at and strive to be not just great, but be the best. So we really need to think on this. I'm not knocking it, city managers nowhere, but it is some areas here that we really can build on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Brown.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would have to agree that the list goes on, because I really want to know what's going to be our direction moving forward, because the last speaker did speak about some great leaders like Condoleezza Rice, Thurgood Marshall, Colin Powell. There were many amazing options, but I think that we looked at this next selection as women that could represent, being represented on this tower. And when we first started, we wanted to have an equal representation of 2 males, 2 women on the tower. Mayor, if you could just give us just a brief history of where this started and what was your direction with this tower, because we can go forward with, expanding the idea and building on it and furthering diversifying, because I do hear my colleagues concerned about making sure that we have diversity, because we are a diverse community. But this was initiated by our mayor, and I wanted to kind of follow his lead in regards to what his initial vision was. He's done multiple community charrettes and gotten numerous names, and I think the names that were brought to us were excellent options. But I also do want to continue the progress of making this a fluid development, a continuous proposal of mural and paintings that can keep building on this water tank. But Mayor, if you give us some insight as to where it started and what your vision was.
Sure, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Yes, it started back, I think in 2019, Councilman Lawson, we were looking at the wall that separated blacks and whites behind the McCrae's barbecue. And the idea was to first take that wall, because a couple councils before was talking about tearing that wall down. I think I got with Mr. Evans about, I think that wall can actually tell the history of this city, because a lot of our kids, and even me growing up here for 52 years, or would be 52 years, didn't really know what that wall meant. So I went back to my parents to find out. And I said, why don't we take pieces of that wall? And I think we said in the council meeting, take pieces of that wall and get some artists to paint the history and put it in our parks. Like, we got 5 parks, and we can put a piece of history in each park, where if a teacher wanted to take their kid on a field trip, they can take them to the parks, and it could be like a scavenger hunt. You go to one part, to the next part, to the next part, and it tells the story of Riviera Beach. So that really didn't take off, and Black History Month was coming up, and thinking outside the box, it was looking at West Palm Beach when they did their mural of civil rights leaders. They got great support from both sides of culture, realizing how important that was. And I just said that because we are 69% Black, to even show our kids that these great leaders existed, and you do have something to achieve for us. So we started the conversation, and I believe the chairperson is right. I mean, it's not that what's on the outside of the wall is really what's on the inside. I mean, the tank is really what's on the inside. But, I just think that that painting, that art would just give us, or give our kids, something that they can look up to. What we're facing here in this city, we see our young men, 14, 15, 16, as I'm out there, you know, they have no direction. They don't see us. They don't see, you know, we don't talk Martin Luther King every day. We talk Martin Luther King Black History Month. And so I think they just needed something visual to, you know, see and say that, you know, be proud. I mean, many of our parents, being a black man, grew up here, wanted to represent something. So, you know, we didn't want to make, I think this is a diverse city, and we do. It's just the beginning. We are going to add to that, that tank, a diverse painting, but this was just the beginning. And of course, I didn't think it would be this tough. Not looking at or piggybacking on West Palm Beach, and I think Delray, and every city, you know, really black city has that, and I don't see why Riviera Beach couldn't have that. But I understand that, you know, we are a diverse city, and I think Marsha did a great job last Tuesday stating that this is just the beginning. We will add to the tank. So that's how it first began, and that's what my thoughts were.
Thank you so much, sir.
Follow, Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I really like the direction because we've had this conversation for a number of months, and we literally have decided that we're going to try to bring some art to our community. This is why I've really advocated for arts in public places a year and a half ago, so that we can create that program. I noticed at West Palm Beach, they change their mural every few months down in downtown West Palm Beach, and it's a tourist attraction. It's a beautiful mural that they paint on a wall right downtown. And they had a honoring Black History Month and some of the civil rights leaders back in February. That was beautiful. That literally got national recognition. So I know that it's a hefty investment, but it is an investment into our community and beautification in our community. A lot of people are concerned with the fact that, you know, we're painting on the water tank and not addressing the water, but we absolutely are. We're currently investing into our infrastructure, and we're beginning ITN and discussions about bringing the water plant. So our discussion about moving forward, I believe Mr. Evans needs some direction, and I would be in support of moving forward with the names recommended with the intent of continuing to grow the mural around the water tank and make it a living body of representation of the city, something that can honor all of the people of our community, be very diverse, but starting with what the intent was that the mayor brought to the table. So, I'm not sure if we need a motion, Mr. Evans, or what you're looking for, a consensus, but I do want us to move forward and not continue just not getting the project done.
All right, very good. So, actually, what motion are you asking us for, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, staff would request that the board select 2 names to move forward with the completion of the first phase of the art project.
I move we go forward with the recommendation staff brought to the table to move forward with the completion of the first phase of the art project.
Second.
Madam Chair, I wanted to make a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and support the item, but I do think we need to figure out, you know, what is the criteria for putting people up there. I know you all did have a few meetings, and, you know, and really that's the only reason why I'm going to go ahead and support it is because we have tried to reach out and get the information from people and find out what they wanted, but I would like to really see more of a criteria set, you know, when we're selecting whoever we're going to put up there, but instead of just, you know, I like that name or I like that person, we need to have more of a defined criteria for selecting people so that we could properly explain why we have that person up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I can't support it for that same reason, because I don't think we have identified. You say we want this to represent our community. It doesn't really represent our community. And as much as I love Michelle Obama, I mean, I think she's fabulous, but if you're going to say these are civil rights icons, she's not a, you know, I don't think that you have identified the criteria. You know, what makes it that that person is going to be up there on that water tower? So I won't say any more about it. I'm not going to vote.
All right, very good. Madam Clerk.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Botel?
No.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
No.
That motion is approved.
Very good. Next item.
The next item is item number 13, which is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, authorizing a naming and renaming policy for streets, city buildings, and facilities, and certain city real or tangible properties, providing for an effective date and other purposes. Madam Chair, members of the board, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
Mr. Sermons, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair and members of the board, this item is to get comments and perspective from the board related to the facilities and street renaming policy. There's been multiple iterations that have come to the board for discussion, and the reason the item was pulled was to get final remarks and comments from the board so we can bring back the policy that encapsulates the desired outcome from the board. So at this time, I'm going to ask that the Director of Development Services, Mr. Clarence Sermon, make this presentation.
Very good. Mr. Sermons?
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the council, Mr. Manager, and Madam Attorney. I am before you to present the changes to the policy on street renaming based on feedback that staff has received over the past conversations we've had related to this. So while the presentation is being brought up, I can start by saying that since the last time that we met, staff took into account the feedback received and also reformatted the resolution so that it is a more user-friendly document for residents reading it, as well as city staff to understand more clearly what's being proposed in it, and that the previous document had some ambiguity in terms of the formatting, but the content is largely intact from the previous or the current policy. So to start with just the background, staff was directed to update and amend the current policy, which was adopted on December 15, 2010. The proposed policy update was presented to council on December 16, 2020, February 17, 2021, and April 7, 2021, and of course today. In the previous discussions, additional direction was provided to staff, and that direction included providing a fee schedule for the costs and more details on paying for these proposed street renamings, a more specific process for street renaming, a more citizen-driven process for street renaming, a more objective criteria on evaluating honorees for street renaming, especially as it relates to exceptional persons or exceptional circumstances. The directive was given that the city wants to avoid pervasive street renaming, resulting in a city where every single street has a commemorative name at the top of it. And finally, staff was directed to incorporate city buildings and facilities into the policy. So given that, I will begin the presentation discussing the proposed policy from the aspect of street renaming, which would be continue to be handled by the Development Services Department. And after me, Director Blankenship will speak to the portion of the policy that discusses renaming city buildings and other minor facilities. Again, this is the matrix of the research staff conducted on other municipalities and how they handle this process. And this table here highlights the changes that have been made between the existing policy and the proposal. And I'll highlight those. So guideline one, the individual must have achieved, and again, this is related to commemorative street renaming. This policy also covers naming of new streets, what happens during the development process when streets are extended and things of that nature, but this relates to when someone applies to give a commemorative name to the street, which doesn't change the hard address or the postal address of the street. But one, the individual must have achieved local or national prominence and have been deceased for no less than 5 years. That's in the current policy. In this proposal, that's been changed to having been deceased no less than 2 years. The second is a street may be named after a living person's only if City Council determines that they have met the criteria for exceptional circumstances. That's in the current policy. In what's proposed now, we have a more fleshed out criteria that's in the attachment 1 in the resolution that describes the criteria that staff will evaluate the application on to advise the board based on multiple questions so that you all can determine whether you believe that person meets the standards for exceptional circumstances or not. All street name changes require review and recommendation of the Development Services Department. That has not changed. Renaming can be initiated by City Council or citizens. That has not been changed. Rename applications must include a petition signed by 2/3 of property owners. That has not changed. It is in the existing resolution. The application fee must be paid before before it can be processed and brought before council. That has not changed. The application fee of $250, the monetary value of it has been added. That was not in the previous or the existing policy. The applicants must pay a $1,000 deposit for the expenses of renaming the street. That was not in the current policy and has been added in this proposal. And city-initiated proposals must include an application. That is new to the proposed policy. And now I will yield to Director Blankenship to discuss this second portion related to buildings and facilities.
Good evening, Council. Richard Blankenship, Parks and Recreation Director. Let me start out by saying that presently there is no policy for parks and rec buildings or for facilities, so that was the basis of starting with this. And the spirit of the parks and the facility side follows the same guidelines as the street naming and renaming. I think this iteration of the policy simplifies and is consistent with the street naming policy and much more coherent than it may have been before. With that, I'll answer any questions that you may have about the facilities and parks side of the policy.
Are there any questions from the board in regards to this item? Before we get started, Mr. Evans, what is the, he gone. All right, we'll go ahead with the comments for, from the board. Anyone wants to address this issue?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
There was a section, 5C2, that addressed street section renaming. I was just trying to get the appetite of the colleagues in regards to if we would want to possibly change that to just sections of streets where we're adding on the additional or the recommended name for that, the honoree for that area, because there's certain streets that stretch large blocks of our community, and maybe we may want to cut that down to where we can actually do portions. In conversations with Mr. Sermons, he said for consistency and for safety, we wanted to try to name the entire street, but I know that there may be different parts of the city where one area of Monroe Heights may have a different honoree than an area in Park Manor. So I wanted to see what the thoughts of my colleagues were in reference to the portions and sections.
What item? What number?
It is VC number 5, V. Roman numeral 5, number letter C.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Section 2. So in the section, the policy states that it's going to be for the entire length of the street and not for short segments of the street. So there may be areas that may have different individuals that want to be honored for the same street in the communities for future reference. That was one of my first concerns, Madam Chair. And just also, if my colleagues want to chime in, they can. But that was one of my concerns with this.
I do.
And then, go ahead.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Councilman Lawson, I think that's a good idea, but not so much, because we've already started, and if we look at just West 28th Street, that goes all the way over to Lake Shore. I think you know what Lake Shore is. And it stretches all the way west to National Village. It covers east of Broadway, it covers the Park Manor neighborhood, it covers the Acre Home Estates neighborhood nearby Lindsay Davis, and it goes all the way into National Village. And I think what you're proposing, we would have to go back and undo what's already been done. Or, then we create this hodgepodge that I think you know, for directional purposes, you wouldn't know, you know, unless you focus in and zero in on the actual numerical portion where one ends and the other begins. But, and I think that provides more confusion.
Madam Chair?
Are you finished?
No, I still got my 10 minutes.
No, I just wanted to respond to what he was
I'm done,
saying on
I'm
that
done.
part.
I'm done.
All right, go ahead, ma'am.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but they changed courses some time ago because the, is it 37th Street, AC Evans, does not go east over the track.
Right.
And that was in the old group of street names. I think also the one in Federal Gardens on, is it TU? The, what's his, I forgot his last name.
Right.
Dixon.
Dixon, yeah.
Right.
So that is just within Federal Gardens, and then all of a sudden with the, I believe that last batch that was done, which is
Leroy
Parrish and
Alexander.
yeah, that group is when it went across the railroad tracks, and we had never done that before. And I, you know, couldn't understand why we did that because on the other side of the tracks, no one really, you know, I mean, the churches are on the west side of the tracks, and so people kind of understood it in that area, but on the other side of the tracks, I do not believe that was the expectation for it to go across the tracks. So it changed courses. It was initially just in that general area, then all of a sudden with the new batch, it went across the railroad tracks. And I mean, my house was on one of those streets, and I was a little surprised that it was on there because that was not my understanding, and it
Wait, I'm sorry.
happened to be on
That was
there.
not your what?
That was not my understanding that it was coming across the tracks.
So what happens if, I mean, applying your concern, Mr. Lawson, if I'm on 13th Street, and my street goes from my house all the way to across Congress, but then it also goes all the way to here. So what you would limit it to just Federal Garden and not go past Public Works, not go across Australia, not go across the track, that's how it would go?
Well, I don't know how it will go now, but AC Evans only goes to Obama Highway and to maybe S Avenue. I don't know if it goes.
Yeah, to S Avenue.
Yeah, so it doesn't come across the tracks. It doesn't, it's not in Park Manor going over to Broadway.
Right.
But the others are, the Parish and all of the other two, I think that, and in R.J. Henley, I don't know if, is there R Avenue over in Federal Gardens?
No.
So our avenue is actually where the public safety street is, and that actually starts
And
through here.
that's not R.J. Henley,
It's
is it?
not.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The old group, it was just in that general area, and then this last bunch just took the whole street. Now, I don't know, maybe if someone from Public Works could explain how that changed or why that started happening, because that was not the way it was going before.
Well, my only thing is, you know, whatever it is, it has to be uniform, and I don't want us to do, this has gotten out of control. So if we want to cut it off to just being the block and go back and redo those others, then that's fine, but whatever it is, it should be uniform, because now we're going to essentially propose a policy, right? Let's just take, for instance, if we take this policy as presented, and we take the same example Councilwoman Miller Anderson just offered up, and then essentially we would need to then extend from the west side, I'm sorry, from the east side of the railroad tracks all the way over to Broadway and beyond if it goes beyond. And do we really want to do that?
Well, I mean, that's the example I gave. If you do 13th Street, you would have to go
Yeah.
all the way across Australian, all the way across Barack Obama Highway, all the way across Broadway to here. So is that what would be proposed? If not, then we would have to have, as you say, a uniform policy, whichever way it may go.
Madam Chair, I have a
Yes,
question
ahead.
about how people actually use these street names. I mean, if you live on AC Evans, let's say you're number 100, whatever that street is, what is it, 28th? 37. Do you use the AC Evans as your legal address, or do you use 37th Street? Is the AC Evans part of it just an honorary, designation that people don't actually use? Or do people actually use it as their address?
That's the question, Mr.
I've seen it both ways.
Yes, Madam Chair. The honorary street names are meant to just honor a person. They don't change the hard addresses of anyone on the street. Now, affectionately, people or may in action, people may begin to refer to the street by that name, and I believe that's why that portion of the policy is in there, so that there is consistency along the streets, so that one portion doesn't have this name, people refer to it by the honorary name, and the other portion doesn't have that honorary name, and creating confusion. But I think in most cases, people do tend to still utilize the hard street name or number.
Madam Chair.
So in that case, it might not matter one way or the other if one segment of that street is named after someone and the rest of the street has the hard number.
It technically, for addressing in the postal services, it would not matter. It could only potentially create confusion verbally if someone is referring to the unofficial name.
Thanks.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
But I think with President Barack Obama, if I'm not mistaken, that is the only one that really has an official change where the road, it was changed on record.
MLK as well.
And I mean, yeah, an MLK, but those other honorary names, those are not. They're basically just up there. They're not changing the name. The T Avenue is still T Avenue, and so is 28th Street. So I don't use Parish Avenue Street, whatever it's called. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it's technically named, but I still use 28th Street. So, you know, my thing about this is I really wish we would look at how we can honor people in a variety of ways. I mean, is street naming the only thing that we're going to be trying to do? And especially if we start doing just the sections, we could have 1,001 people names on all these streets if we start doing by block. And it was just, to me, it seems to be gonna get out of hand.
I make a second. So is that to repeal all the names? Did I hear you say that?
I'm fine with that.
Whoa.
Well, I mean, I mean,
but you know
there's nothing wrong with having a policy, but if we want to just say, just take them all out, then I have no problem with that as well.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Let me tell you something. The time is now. If we don't fix it, it'll never get fixed.
Yeah, you're right.
And you know what? You know what? I like your uncle. Your cousin did great work, but listen, we have to think about what's best for the city. And you're right. I imagine we ought to get elected and get a street named after us if that's the case. Then, I mean, but nobody really wants to get into this whole thing about, you know, now we have to determine, because undoubtedly, right, the neighbor across the street from that person who lives there doesn't always think highly of that person. So now you're creating a rift between, you know, excuse me, nothing intended, but the Hatfields and the McCoys. So, you know. So, you know.
Mr. McCoy, make a motion.
So let's just have a discussion. So should we set this to have a sunset date that we remove all of the names? Because I don't know that just taking an official action to just, you know, revert all of those names back, but should we talk about or explore the opportunity of moving this towards, we are May 19th, to have it all sunset at the end of the fiscal year or something like that, and be reverted back? And that's what I want to hear, the dialogue from the members.
My position, Mr. McCoy and Councilwoman Miller Anderson, is I'm amenable either way. If we want to sunset the street naming policy, because it has become a very controversial issue for not only city employees, but for the board as well. People have been solicited, they have been harassed to be able to get a street named after their person, and it is a situation where it's kind of become out of hand. And one person says that should have been named after their family member, and another person says that should go to them, and it becomes this whole thing of who is, who gets to the right person. It's just really becoming a situation where it's taking up too much of our time when we have bigger fish to fry here. So if we want to look at setting a sunset date for this type of activity, then we can do that as well. It is at the pleasure of the board how we want to proceed with it. I'm taking motions and recommendations at this time.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I'm in favor of offering a motion to sunset this. The current names that are being proposed, and I want to know, do we need to identify the names, or do we just do all of the names with the exception of Obama and, well, we can't do anything with Obama because it's done by county.
You can't do anything with it. But with Obama and Martin Luther King was done through the state, so you can't do anything with it.
Right. But those that were named, we could just say the ones that were named by city council.
Yes.
And then it'd be my hope that, Mr. Evans, we can send out not just one, but at least 2 notices to everyone that is affected, that lives on those streets, that this name will be sunsetting. Is that ideal, members and staff?
I'm just wondering how people, I don't know how I would feel if I lived on, and I keep going back to A.C. Evans because I happen, Reverend Evans is a friend, but I keep thinking, what if I lived there and I really respected this guy? Now the council's going to say, no, you can't live on that, you can't name that street after him any longer. I don't know. I'm wondering if we should get input from the community of people who live on those streets.
Well, and that's fine, but we already are dealing with the dilemma that that A.C. Evans doesn't go across the entire city.
Yeah.
You got some that goes probably at least 4 miles, well, 3 miles, I would say. So, I think if we do it in one walk, then nobody can come in here and say it was personal. So we can't get the sympathizer for Reverend so-and-so to come in and say, well, why did you do my bishop like that or whatever?
I think that, you see how we've been going with this? This is a very controversial issue, which means that as long as this policy is alive, we're going to have these conversations about who should get a street, who should this be named after, and I think that it becomes a situation where, as I said before, we have bigger fish to fry here. We have new water plants to build, we have new city halls to build, we have bigger things to do, and I think spending a whole lot of time on trying to figure out who's going to be named on First Street is something that's just, that we don't need to be dealing with right at this moment. So with that being said, Ms. Willa Anderson, you had a comment you want to make?
I was just going to say, to Dr. Botel's point, we could, at some point have community input, and I do believe that this is something we don't need to address at this moment, maybe. There are a number of ways we can probably honor people, but the street names, even if it's, having pavers, I don't know, maybe have bricks with some similar to what you all have over at Jay's. There are a number of ways we can honor people, and I think we, over the years, have just got fixated on street names all the time. But there's, there's numerous ways, I'm sure, that we could honor people and just in memory of them.
I'd like to make a correction. Someone just texted me and said that A.C. Evans Street has been changed to A.C. Evans. There are actually 2 blocks. One is A.C. Evans Street and one is actually West 37th Street.
So maybe we could just have someone look into the changes, see whether or not those changes were actually done on the books, so we know what we're dealing with.
Right.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Let Mr. Evans have a conversation, then we'll come back to you, Dr. Botel.
Madam Chair, if I may, one of the communities that I used to work for had a similar challenge with regards to this particular issue. And what they did in lieu of renaming some of the streets, they created a public art project that commemorated the names of the individuals, and it was considered, a piece in a park that actually recognized the folks for their contributions. So there's other ways to do it. It could be something that you do as a park piece. I've also seen situations where they've created, quote unquote, a hall of fame or persons that have been recognized. The other thing we also thought about is the bottom half of the water tank. We've had the discussions internally, maybe that's an opportunity to recognize our local heroes and folks that have made contributions, and the bottom half of the tank be painted in the likeness of persons within our community. So there's a multitude of ideas in the event that the board wants to find another mechanism to commemorate the service that some of the folks that have been recognized by street naming, to do something different in lieu of the existing policy or the discussion that we're having.
Very good.
I just had a quick question about buildings. We haven't talked about those, and I wondered, when we eventually build a new city hall complex, will the Bobby Brooks Government Center, will that name go away, or will that name carry over to the new government center?
Mr. Evans, you want to answer?
Madam Chair, that's a policy decision for the board at the time that we move forward with the project, if they want to carry the name over. So that would be something that would be part of the discussions that we would have.
But and essentially, that would then fall up under the new policy. So,
yeah, that's what.
Assuming if the policy is adopted.
well, we have to do something. We have to act.
We have officially or unofficially said we're not doing anything right now until we figure this out. So we don't have to worry about anyone coming before us trying to put a street name in, right? Because we said we're not doing that until we figure this out.
I agree, and what we can do is this: if we want to impose a moratorium on this until we can figure this out, because clearly this is an issue that we don't want to be able, the existing streets and people who have fought hard to have their names, or people recognize that their names are on these streets, may want them to stay. We have a situation where we're trying to get a policy in place that, number one, you can't please everyone, but we definitely want to make sure that what is existing, we can deal with that as well. But we want to be able to move this forward, and we have to make a decision on it. But I propose that we do a moratorium on naming streets or buildings at this time until we as a board can figure this out. And this may need to be an issue that we can workshop, because what's happening is that we need to have community input. We need to be able to have information brought in to us from staff. So I think that given tonight, we're not going to solve it tonight, but we do need to solve it. This is something that we need to flesh out to be able to have a policy that will stand the test of time, and that we can move forward in confidence and know that whatever we have done is going to be able to be amenable and acceptable to the public as well.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I do want to acknowledge the staff for working on this, and, I do want to apologize on my behalf anyway. I know you all put a lot of work into this, but, this is almost becoming bigger than this. I mean, the lobbying that's done behind the scenes because of this policy is great, and I just, and you will, if you go back some years, you will see that I've always kind of had some thoughts about this, because it just becomes a popularity contest, and I just feel that this is, we like Ms. Lanier just said, we have so many important things that we need to really be addressing, and look at how much time we've spent on this tonight. So, although I know you all have been working on this, I just don't, I think we need to really just pump the brakes and figure this out before we go moving forward with anything.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And if I could just piggyback on that, I think at our next conversation about this, we really do need to have a better understanding of how many of the streets go all the way across, how many are just in one neighborhood, or some of them just 1 or 2 blocks. I don't know that. So it would be good if we knew that, I think.
All right, very good. Could I get a motion to put a 6-month moratorium on naming buildings or streets
So moved.
until we can figure out how we can move forward with this item that not only works with the staff and the board, but to certainly have the public involved with this decision?
So moved.
I can't make a motion. I'm just asking for one.
I just made it.
Okay.
I'll second that. I mean, do we even need a moratorium? I mean, this.
We're gonna keep having. We're gonna have to. If it's on the agenda, we're gonna have to address it at some point. Unless we.
Yeah, but I'm saying we don't have to have a moratorium. We just don't do it. That's all.
Okay.
I second it. I did second it.
All right. Very good. Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair and members of the board, I did get some communications from our fire chief, and he said that the names on the street do pose a challenge for some of our new firefighters that are still learning the community, because somebody says, I live on AC Avenue, and they're still trying to find it, and it doesn't populate in Google and those types of things. So when we do have that discussion, I will include public safety into it as well, so it's a more robust conversation about it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, then Uber drivers, that may be difficult for them when they want to go and pick somebody up and deliver food, so I think we should consider that as well.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I don't think we should do a moratorium. We should just kind of push this item out, ask Mr. Evans to give us a few months to bring this back, give us some time to dissect and have some workshops to discuss it. Because even the policy, I'm looking at it now, I think we need to just separate the policy of street naming and the building naming. I think those need to be individual policies because they're very different in nature, where we can look at possible sponsors for buildings. We could be honoring individuals from the community for the buildings versus individuals from the community wanting to have streets named after them that they've, played an important role to. So also looking at the possibility of separating the policies. So if we could possibly not put a moratorium, but just give it a few months to come back.
That is up to the board, because what is happening is that it has to be addressed regardless. We have allowed, we have asked the staff who have put a lot of time into this, and we just need to address it. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Members, respectfully, this is the 4th time that we've talked about this, so I don't know what we're coming back to do other than talk more about it, but I think we all can agree, and if it's not that we can agree, even from our fire chief, that it creates confusion. And more importantly, I think we should all know that we have to be uniform in whatever we do. And the problem isn't going to fix itself. So I appreciate us not or want to enact a moratorium, but I want to sunset it and give it to the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, and then make sure we send out ample notice. But we have to fix it, because you can't. I mean, even from the public safety standpoint, oh my gosh, can we imagine if this creates a problem for first responders and they can't get there in time? And I mean, this just, to me, seems like a no-brainer that we have to take action. And I know it's going to hurt some folks' feelings, but, I'm not here to, I'm not here to appease anybody's, ego, but I'm going to do the right thing. And I think it's quite apparent just from the discussion that we have to be uniform and we can't create more confusion. So if nothing, I'm reserved back, and I want to see if I can make a motion to sunset.
Well, there is a motion on the floor, and, you can always come back with your motion as well, sir.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a response to that. I know with this comment, sunsetting or moratorium, that addresses the street renaming, especially with comments from Chief, but also we have in the policy the building naming as well, and we haven't even addressed the building naming. So that's a concern. If we do sunset the streets, are we also sunsetting building namings? Are we not going to name any of our future buildings that's coming to the table? What is going to be the plan? So I think this does need some more discussion in regards to before we make any motion or action.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
I would like to add that for consideration of the conversation of sunsetting, that the current policy does govern the naming of new streets. So if a new subdivision or development is proposed, this policy is what guides how that is to happen. So if it was sunsetted, I would just want to make sure that it only applies to the portion related to honorary street renaming.
Very good. Are there any other questions in regards to this item?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
So my support in holding off on it includes the naming of the buildings too, not just the street naming. And when we said naming of the buildings, we're talking about not Mr. Sermons, you're not talking about for the developments. We're talking honoring people with the buildings. Is that?
Correct. The bulk of the conversation is related to honoring people through the naming of buildings or naming of streets. But aside from that, the existing policy does govern the hard or postal addresses as well. So we would want to make sure we're making that distinction if we want to sunset or invalidate any parts of the existing policy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I gave the second, but I don't know that we need to have a moratorium to stop it because it has to come before us anyway. And if we're kind of having a conversation that we want to have the community input and we want to figure this out before we move forward on doing any, I think that's pretty much, that's almost like a consensus. So I don't know that we really need a moratorium.
Yeah, I only offer the moratorium so that we won't take any action until we do come to a concession on this.
We'll always have a no, so.
Yeah, well, exactly. So, do we want to proceed with this vote, or do we want to just have a consensus on?
I can withdraw that motion, and we'll just say that we'll take it up at a later time.
Okay.
And I want to comment on, Mr. Evans made a remark about the possibility of putting something on the water tower. And I don't know, somebody might have said pavers. Maybe when we do the new City Hall complex, we can honor people by putting pavers in with names on, so it doesn't get involved with the streets. I agree that the naming of the streets can be so confusing for first responders, and it would be really good if we could get rid of all of them, but still honor the people whose names are being taken off the streets by putting them on a paver in the new City Hall complex, and at least that way they'd be honored, and we could continue to do that. So.
Very good, Ms.
And we might want to even take a little bit more time to remove them from the streets, give it a year's time or however, a couple of years, so that people get used to the fact that it's no longer, keep coming back to A.C. Evans, but no longer A.C. Evans, but 37th Street.
All right, very good. So if we have the motion taken back and the second taken back, so how are we going to proceed now? Members?
They can get with us, and we can get with them and let them know when we want to bring it back, or we can have another discussion at one of our meetings just to say when we want it to bring back, when we want to bring it back.
So you want to table it, and then we can always take it off the table? Very good. So we can make a motion to table this item, and then we'll bring it back once we've had the discussion with staff and the community. Can I get a motion for that?
Make a motion to table.
Second.
Very good. Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Councilperson Botel?
Yes.
Pro Tem Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Chair Lanier?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Very good. This item has been tabled. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the next item is a discussion and deliberation item concerning the proposed ordinance regarding the cone of silence.
Mr. Evans, I'm sorry, can we get a motion to, this is a discussion item, so,
Yes.
Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I can have the Director of Procurement, Ms. Althea Pimsel, make this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Pimsel.
And Madam Chair, there are no public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comments on this item is now closed.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair Lanier, Mayor Felder, Council, City Manager, City Attorney. For the record, my name is Althea Pimsel. I'm the Director of Procurement, and I'm here today about the proposed revisions to the Cone of Silence ordinance. We presented to you on March 3rd for your input and some discussion the ordinance changes we were proposing. The Cone of Silence is designed to protect the integrity of the procurement process. It shields from undue influence prior to the recommendation of contract award. Its essential purpose is to ensure fair, transparent, ethical, and open competition in the procurement process, while we're securing the best value at the lowest possible expense for the city overall. The parties to whom the Cone of Silence is applicable currently is bidders, proposers, others, elected official, legislative staff. Currently, there is no provision for city staff. The commencement of the Cone of Silence currently is when the bid proposals are received. That's why you're receiving notices for the imposition of the Cone of Silence. Also, the termination. There'd be no changes to the termination because it terminates upon contract award. One of the other things that we're considering, or is for your consideration, is the reinstatement of the cone if the council asks the city manager, or the procurement department to go back out for solicitation. The prohibited and permitted communications during the cone of silence currently prohibits communication except for written correspondence. Amendments to the cone of silence continue to prohibit communication upon the imposition of the cone of silence, with some exceptions for emergencies, or if there's contract negotiations during public meetings, or for protest hearings, or any dispute resolution, and for sole source procurements. The notice for imposing a cone of silence, our recommendation for your consideration, is that it begins at the time the solicitation is issued. Currently, as I said, it is now begins, the cone of silence begins when the proposals are received. A survey of our surrounding communities revealed there is a bit of a mixture, but the highest percentage is for those cities that allow the cone of silence to be imposed at the time the solicitation is issued. Is there any questions?
Are there any questions in regards to this discussion item for Ms. Pemsel? No? What do you want us to do with this item, Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair, we wanted to get any comments and remarks from the board, if there is any questions, so we can incorporate those in the proposed language. If not, staff looks to bring back an item for your consideration at your next regular meeting.
Very good. Are there any comments that that the board wants to incorporate into this before it's being brought back to us for a vote?
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I have a question. So the mayor is in this cone of silence too?
In the draft ones that we're recommending? Yes, sir.
Okay, and this will be the first time?
I'm not sure I understand.
Has the mayor always been a part of the cone of silence?
Yes, the cone, it would be in the ordinance.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Let Ms. McBride address that question, please.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. May I? Mr. Mayor, the mayor and his legislative staff was not included, is not presently included in this provision.
Okay.
All the council members and their legislative staff are included.
Okay. So is the mayor going to be added?
Yes, and their legislative staff, consistent with the other elected officials.
He doesn't have a vote, or they don't have a vote? Who's
Absolutely. I know. It's the idea of being able to influence. Can I share with you one of the reasons it was added to? And doing the research too, and who knows how these things come together. If you look at the county's ordinance too, dealing with the cone of silence, section 2-355, it does provide that a mayor or chief executive officer that is not a member of a local governing body would be included within that cone of silence. And I think that keeps things consistent throughout the county. So if ever we're faced with it, you and your staff would be aware too.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Pemsel or Ms. McBride in regards to this item? So what happens now, Mr. Evans? Once our comments are made, then what happens?
We will bring the item as presented, if there's no changes or modifications from the board, back for consideration at your next regular meeting.
Very good. Is the board okay with that coming back to us?
I'm fine, yes.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Pemsel, Ms. McBride, for your comments. The next item is discussion.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. By the city manager?
Yes, Madam Chair, I did want to take the...
Yes, and I'm sorry, Mr. Evans, I forgot to ask you after our public comment to address some of the public's comments.
Yes, Madam Chair, that's exactly what I'm going to do at this particular moment.
Thank you.
With regards to the request or the item related to funding for Riviera Beach Cares, I will do some research with the finance director, and if that was an appropriation that was provided for in the budget, we will make sure we get that resolved in the next 2 weeks. With respect to the railroad crossing on 13th Street, we can see if there's any improvements that can be contemplated, but a lot of that's FEC property, and there's little things that we can do. I know Ms. Jacobs is working with staff when we talked about the railroad and the railroad crossing, creating that quiet zone and that closed corridor. So I think staff is still doing some additional research with regards to that, but I can have something sent out to the board to give you an update on that. With respect to the corner of Broadway and Blue Heron, we are moving forward on the CRA side with the demolition of 2600 Blue Heron. That's the old bank building on the corner, and the board did authorize about $90,000 in expenditures to improve the landscape at that particular corridor. Our intent also is to move forward very quickly and aggressively to get an ITN together for the board to review, to look to see if there's opportunities for public-private partnerships and some development that could occur on that particular site. As it relates to the individual that spoke about the fees associated with backflows and the backflow prevention devices, this is something that's not new. This is something that's been in place for a long time, but we will put together a comprehensive memorandum and share that with the board as well as the resident that requested some information, because there's a couple of things that we want to be able to unpack and provide some clarity with respect to that particular item. On the Code Red, I've requested that staff work with USD staff. One of the things that we're going to do is we have to get the shade file from the utility district as it relates to the zones they have. Once we have that information, we can input it in Code Red and we can do some geofencing. But at minimum, what we're going to do for any boil water notices, we will use some snipe signs and put that on the corner of every street that's affected on both entrance points. If there is 2 entrance points on the street, we will canvass the neighborhood. We will utilize the Code Red system if we do have the shade files, and we will make sure that on our social media platforms that is communicated. So we'll make sure that we do a better job as it relates to the notifications concerning any water main breaks. The other comment with respect to businesses coming to the city, it is very common that any business that comes to the city does look to have a conversation with administration, but also the elected officials, just to get an understanding of what their perspective is and if it's a good fit. So there's no policy per se, and no entity that I've ever worked has a policy that prohibits or outlines the communications that elected officials or staff have with prospective businesses or business parties that are looking to do business in the city. And actually, when they do have conversations with the elected officials, in some cases, they want to hear the vision that the elected official has for the community and see if it's worth the investment. And a lot of times, elected officials serve as great spokespersons for the community and attracting a lot of businesses. So it's not uncommon to see elected officials such as the mayor go talk to executives from other corporations to see if there's a potential for coming in the community. And the last comment with respect to investment on the west side of the community that was referred to on the west side of the tracks, the city has spent substantial capital recently with the acquisition of the property on the corner of Broadway and Congress for the new municipal fire station. That project's anticipated to be about $12 million. The lights and the intersection will be improved. It is not something that is an issue or a concern for us as it relates to public safety vehicles being able to respond to the community. It's actually very common in a lot of major cities that fire stations are located on major roadway networks. It actually improves some of the response times and actually gives us better response times to the western side of our community. So there will be some preemptive measures that will be put in place to ensure that our units can safely be able to exit the fire station and return back. Also, on July 3rd, the city will be opening its new municipal library as well as re-emerging center. That's at 2129 North Congress Avenue. That expenditure was about $3 million in totality to bring that facility to life, which will be the city's first staple state-of-the-art facility. So just in property acquisition alone and investment, the city has made well over $5 million of capital investments, not to include the $12 million that will occur once the fire station is constructed. The city also did move forward with its urban farm, so there is actually an urban farm that's at the old site of the Fire Station 88. So there's a lot of activity that's occurring throughout our community and some additional projects that will be coming to the board for consideration. Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks as it relates to comments that the residents made. I did want to encourage and urge our residents over the next 2 to 3 weeks, please make it a point, if you haven't received the vaccine, to visit our vaccination site. We offer vaccines on Thursday and Friday. Walk-ups are available. So please make sure you do that, because our spot that we have right now is possibly going to look to close in about the next 2 weeks, as we're having a situation where the numbers aren't there. And in some cases, we are having more staff there running the pod than people that are getting vaccinated. So we're encouraging our residents to please make a push over the next 2 weeks to visit our site if you are looking to get the vaccine. We are providing the Moderna vaccine. So we're going to probably be doing that for the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to go and transition into the second shots, and then we may see our pod close. We are also partnering up with the healthcare district. There's an event later on this evening that I'm sure a lot of the council members will talk about, Mr. Willie Spence, but we've partnered up with the healthcare district that they're actually going to have their mobile bus there the night of the event to provide vaccines for residents. So a lot of the things that you're seeing with regards to the vaccine, they're going to do a lot of pop-ups, a lot of events. We're also working with the Office of Councilman Lawson. There's an event that's going on Saturday at Stony Brook or Azure Estates. We're going to be doing some on-site vaccination there as well. So we are going to transition. If there is opportunities for pop-ups, if you're interested and you would like to work with the City of Riviera Beach, please reach out to the Office of the City Manager or the Fire Chief, and we can get a pop-up vaccination station at your clubhouse or a park or what have you. We're going to be demobilizing our operations at Wells and looking to bring it to the community. But certainly I cannot encourage folks enough to please continue to follow the guidance and direction provided by the CDC. We also will be putting out additional guidance as it relates to the wearing of masks and what the appropriate practices are going to be for the city employees and persons visiting city facilities, working with legal to get that out. So that will be coming out as quickly as possible. And Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, sir. Any remarks by the city attorney?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Any remarks? Any city council committee reports at this time?
I just have one or two, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I attended the Government Affairs Committee meeting of the Palm Beach North Chamber. We had a presentation by Florida Representative John Snyder from District 82, who reported about the legislative session and told us about some sales tax holidays that are coming up, one during Freedom Week, July 1st to July 7th, a back-to-school sales tax holiday in August, and a disaster preparedness tax holiday. And then today I was appointed to the League of Cities, as the League of Cities representative to the Palm Beach County Hunger Relief Advisory Council, and I have a set of notes from that meeting from today, and I'll provide them to Mr. Evans so that he can share them with all of you.
Yes, thank you. I do have a committee report for the Health and Human Services Committee through the city. We are proud to say that we have finally worked out our agreement with the organization considered to be called the Hope Dealers. They are a West Palm Beach organization that is now going to be Hope Dealers Riviera Beach. We are looking forward to welcoming them to our city. Just a little bit of information about Hope Dealers. Now, there are kids that go to Boys and Girls Clubs. There are kids that go to PAL programs. There are kids that go to after-school programs. These are not those kids. These are kids that need an additional support. It has a mental health component to it. It has a therapy component to it, and it is a program that deals with troubled youth that basically the system has kind of thrown away. So we are happy to bring that organization to the city. We worked on it through our Health and Human Services Committee, and that is that committee report. Next person on the next person for a statement is by the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd like to invite you to come out on Monday, residents to join us for the Safe City Coalition. This initiative is directly aimed to developing solutions and building a strong coalition of individuals committed to reducing crime in Riviera Beach. That will be held Monday, May 24th, 6:30 p.m. at J Ministries. Also, I would like for you guys to join. May is Mental Health Awareness and Trauma-Informed Care Month. Tomorrow, May 20th, is the day officially designated for the Get Your Green Out or Get Your Green On campaign. The Get Your Green On campaign encourages businesses, government agencies, nonprofits, and community members to work together to let people know that they are not alone and support is available. In support of mental health awareness, I'm asking our residents tomorrow to join me in support of this initiative and wear green. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Next up, Councilwoman Julia Botel.
Yeah, my quarterly Singer Island Town Hall meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, May 27th at 6 o'clock in the Ambassador Center. It's also going to be virtual, so my legislative assistant will be putting out information about that, about how to sign into that. We are going to have a watch party for Willie Spence on Sunday. I think everybody knows about that by now, but I encourage everybody to come out to Bicentennial Park. Make sure you have your device with you so you can vote early and often, as they say in Chicago. But in this case, it's legit. You can vote 10 times on your on this device, 10 times, 30 times in all you can vote for Willie. So come on out to Bicentennial Park. My office is still working with the producers to determine the best way to recognize Willie in other ways. And just a note about the Singer Island Community Garden. We'll be there on Saturday from 8:30. If we need volunteers to mark the locations for the bedposts and to staple the pre-cut fabric into the beds, these tasks are not physically challenging. So if you want to come out and just enjoy time in the sun, God willing, it'll be sunny that day. Not too sunny. Want to come out and enjoy the sun with some friends and neighbors? Come on out and help us with that. I'm sorry, that's Thursday. Am I right about that? That's Thursday at 8:30. Saturday, we do need people who have strong backs and arms because we need some of those holes dug, and we do have an auger. So plenty of work to be done in the community garden. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Councilman McCoy.
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to acknowledge Using Basketball to Better Lives. Lolly Lorenzo Hutchinson hosted his basketball camp this past weekend at the Tate's Gym, Dan Calloway's, and it was an amazing event. All the kids got free basketballs, free food, and mentorship, basketball skills from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It was an amazing event, and he's going to be looking to do this as opposed to annually, maybe every 6 months, because it's something that I want to make sure that we connect with the local nonprofits and organizations. As Mr. Evans stated, this Saturday, myself with Youth Rec and the rest of the council will be hosting a food drive a activity at Stony Brook, formerly Stony Brook Azora Estates, where we'll be doing free food for the residents. We'll be doing vaccinations, financial literacy program, mental health therapy, and literally just meet and greet with some of the city officials, staff, and for the residents over there. They're making great progress and strides at the estates now, Azora Estates, and we want to just make sure that we show them we're definitely supportive of everything that's happening over there and the progress that's finally being made in Stony Brook. And Mr. Evans, the library, are we going to have a name for this library? Or are we just going to call it the City of Riviera Beach Library?
City of Riviera Beach Library.
I'm sure that's what it will be. And that was my comments, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Miller Anderson.
Well, he just brought up the point about the library. Will it be on the 18th? Are we still having something on that last day of school?
The date has actually been pushed back to July 3rd.
Okay.
Yep, so we pushed it back to July 3rd because we're still getting some additional materials in.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I have a couple of comments. One of them is, if you remember last week, at our last meeting, we had this whole grand opening for our community gardens. Well, guess what? There are seedlings out there now. You can see the plants and the vegetables that are growing. The little seedlings are there, which means that, you know, everything is on schedule. So I was very excited to see that happening. Second thing is that my office and the City of Riviera Beach are working with an organization called Juneteenth of the Palm Beaches, which is going to offer a festival for free for the city residents or Palm Beach County residents here in the City of Riviera Beach at Bicentennial Park. That will be on June 19th, which is Juneteenth. Second of all, our traffic calming went very well, and we are in the middle of calculating our results. The survey is still up on the city's website if you want to vote in regards to what we need to have on 13th Street to calm that traffic. And that is it. Meeting's adjourned.
Hey, Shirley.
Man, I'm talking to me.
Shirley, I want to see you.